Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could remain standing to honor our fallen soldiers. You may be seated. Kristen, is roll call continuing?
Yeah.
Excellent. Chief Sutter, will you start us with introductions, please?
Scott Sutter, Chief of Police.
Brian Will, Fire Chief. Dave Richmond, Road Professional Services, City Engineer.
Adam Young from Wade Trim, City Planner.
Don Grice, DPW Director.
Tessa Sweeney, Director of Senior Services and Community Engagement. Brooke Card, City Treasurer.
Kristen Kenyak, City Clerk.
Jerry Link, City Council.
Pam Powell, City Council. Ellen Glass, City Manager.
Mike Gilmer, City Attorney.
Liz Armstrong, Mayor.
Brad Dick, Mayor Pro Tem.
Tom Hicks, City Council.
Denise Miller, City Council. Brenda Simons, City Councilor.
Moving on, we're going to move right into the special presentation of the first of two. Brody Killian from PFM.
Madam Mayor, Brody Killian is here to join us tonight, and he's here to present his reevaluation to City Council. Brody and his team have really done a significant amount of work over the past couple of months, and I know Council's anxious to hear, and we'll turn it over to Brody to have him walk us through his presentation tonight. So.
Can you hear me okay? Well, it's a pleasure to be here. As Ellen stated, my name is Brody Killian. I'm with PFM Financial Advisors. We are a municipal bond advisor, financial consultant located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We work with a number of local school districts, local government, cities, townships, counties, villages, higher education institutions, etc., with their financial needs. And also we sometimes help people with water rate study reviews and or original water rate studies. So that's what we are here for tonight to discuss. I wish I was shorter right now. But it's a pleasure to be here. I know this has been a difficult topic. It's never fun to deliver news like rate increases, but I think you guys have done the right thing here in pausing to do a reevaluation of what those rates are. Just make sure that you're doing everything right. And my goal here tonight is just to be very straight to the point with you and tell you exactly what we've uncovered as far as our review. And my presentation's here to council. I'm happy to address any questions you may have and hopefully clarify some things for not only you and your administration, but for the community as well. So if we could turn to the first slide. So, fundamentally, the question you might be asking, was a water rate increase necessary? And the simple answer to that is yes. And so then you might be asking, well, why? Why was that water rate increase necessary? And there's a number of reasons for that, but fundamentally, it's that over the years, the rate increases were not commensurate with the current needs of the program as well as the growing demands. And so you're in a position now where you're playing catch up. And we've prepared a number of financial analyses here for you to look at and provided you with a couple options, but the history is just that. And so when you look at what's going on with the switch over to the county system, and you can see some of these vital current factors that we've laid out, there is a significant upfront capital investment in order to join the county system. There's future wholesale water cost increases as a result of going to the county water system. Your DPW and administrative team has identified some additional capital improvement items that need to be addressed as you move forward. And we also want to make sure that you're setting yourselves up with some fundamental, important financial targets, including What is the appropriate amount of cash, we would call days cash on hand? Making sure that you're meeting your board policy of debt service coverage ratio, as well as your board policy of the appropriate amount of funds for your fund balance. So if you turn the page, you know, just to look at the numbers, and there's a lot of numbers on here, and I don't want you to get lost in the wall of numbers. So I'm just gonna point out, just fundamentally, what would happen if the city had kept rates at the old structure. And the biggest difference when you compare the old system to the new system is that there is an increase in cost of operating under the county system. And just the fundamental balance of making sure that you have enough revenues coming in to cover your expenditures, operations expenditures, and then the appropriate money set aside for debt service and future capital improvement funds. You can see here, the old rate structure was just not sustainable. You would have been blowing through the cash that had been built up in the system within this current budget year. And you'd also already be breaking your board policy as it relates to your debt service coverage ratios. The old rate structure, unfortunately, was just not sustainable for the upgrade that you made to the county system. The same would have been true if you would have stayed on the existing system. The prior analyses that you've seen, that would have also required a substantial capital investment up front. And so that's fundamentally why we can't keep rates at the old structure. So let's move to the second scenario, which is, what if we hold the rates where they are right now? And I want to point out, if you go all the way to the bottom of the page, some critical financial measures. We talk about your debt service coverage ratio, having money set aside for future capital projects, your fund balance targets, days cash on hand, and then I'll show you later what the average annual homeowner's cost is under these different scenarios. Even under this scenario, holding them where they are today, and also addressing those key capital improvement items that were laid out in the CIP plan by the administration, which includes a few $1 million plus projects that we put into the years 26, 27, 28, 29, and 29, 30, all being bond funded. You'll note that your operating expenses have gone up significantly with this next projected year. So just to point that out, the operating expenditures for the new system is going to be about 1.2 million next year for the full year. And then you'll note that your debt service is going to start to layer on future projects, assuming that those become a priority for the administration. You're going to need to make sure that you're covering those as well. But even under this scenario, if you look out into the fiscal year 26, 27 and beyond, your debt service coverage ratio starts to fall below that board policy of 1.2 times. So to say that you couldn't continue to operate your system by holding rates where they are now is not true. You could operate for at least the next couple of years, but you're eventually going to have to come back to the community and ask for additional rate increases. So moving to the next slide. So here is the scenario. What if the city restarts the originally planned rate increases on July 1, 2025? So if you recall, the city paused the last water rate increase. And you'll note here that under this scenario, it actually appears to be meeting your future and what we'll call them, goals of meeting some of these key financial indicators. You're covering your debt service ratio guidance. You're setting aside the appropriate amount of money for your cash reserves that would likely get you into that high AA category for a credit rating. And additionally, you would be building up money, healthy amount of money to address some of those future capital improvements. And all those other bonds that I talked about that would have to be layered on to address some of those other projects could be covered here. So going back to that original plan that was proposed to you from the other provider, who I might add is actually a competitor of ours and probably wouldn't have minded coming here to tell you that those analyses were not right, but they were accurate. And so to that end, that's the reality of the situation. So if we move to the next scenario, here's a situation where we look at how do we potentially remix those different categories of the rate structure between the commodity usage charge, the base fee, and the debt fee. And you'll note that in this scenario, in order to kind of get to that same goal target as we saw on the prior slide, you're going to need to increase your commodity charge. You're going to be able to drop your base fee and slightly drop your debt fee, but then eventually you're gonna have to come back to the community again for an increase to the debt fee down the road as we layer on new bonds to address those large capital projects. So I wish I came here to tell you that there was a solution, that we were gonna be able to save money, but I will also tell you that you have some time here to work through, digest this before you set the budget. There's not a lot of time here, but there are some options for you. So let's turn the page then to what are the bill scenarios. And this is based upon the average homeowner analysis, assuming that it's actually consistent with the prior rate study so that there's some consistency in comparing. So this is for a home that is going to be utilizing 1,800 cubic feet of water on a quarterly basis, or 7,200 annually, or 600 cubic feet per month. So in the top left corner, you're gonna see the hold scenario for each of the different meter sizes or line sizes. And on the right side, you're gonna see what it would look like if we changed the mixture, right, of the different rate structure. And then you go down to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the difference between them. So for example, and I've got to put my glasses on here because I can't see that from there, and I better put them on so I can read what's on this slide here. So the average homeowner bill under this current hold scenario for next year, for a full fiscal year, so a whole year, for a 5/8 water meter, the annual bill estimated to be $846.04 for the whole year. If you go up here, 1 inch would be $1,332. And then compare that to the remix scenario. So we would restructure that rate kind of organization. You'll note here that the 5/8 would go up to 982, and your 1 inches would also go up. But the comparison, if you look down at the bottom right-hand corner, is no matter how we do it, there's going to be a slight increase relative to what you're doing right now. In this restructure scenario where you have a higher usage charge versus the base fee, you'll note that a few of your large commercial properties that are using 4-inch lines are gonna see a pretty significant increase. All right, so let's compare that to the next slide, which is taking the current hold scenario, where you're keeping rates where they are right now, and compare them to the prior rate increase plan. So let's go back to what was originally proposed to you. And again, you can see here with that bill differential, there's just no way around an increase. It's just a matter of, how do you want to mix that rate structure? Ideally, from a best practice standpoint, you want to have that rate structure mix so that it's meeting the specific buckets of expenditures that it's designed to cover. So your usage charge should be covering those expenditures to get the water from, the source into the homes, right? The base fee is the other key expenditures related to, kind of the ongoing system management as far as salaries and wages and other, expenses in that regard. Then the third is your debt fee. And of course, that's a little easier to explain because that's covering your outstanding bond debt service. So if you turn to the final slide here, which is, well, what are the options to the city that they should be considering at this juncture? And I think you have a couple options. One is you could hold rates where they are right now. And in doing that, you would adopt your 24-25 budget accordingly. You would then adopt your initial 25-26 budget based upon the existing rate structure. And in doing so, perhaps you're buying yourselves some time as a community and council to evaluate what the usage is gonna look like under this new structure. Could give you some time to prioritize those future capital improvement needs. And again though, as you see here, you're gonna have to reevaluate the rates again next year. And you're likely gonna have to seriously consider another increase if you were to hold them. Now, in reprioritizing future projects, depending upon, what the administration and council decides there, that's, could have some impact as far as savings down the road. But the reality is, going to the county water system is increasing your average annual operating expenditure significantly. So you're gonna have to address that one way or the other, even if you decide to put off long-term capital improvement projects and go back to your old system of doing it on a pay-as-you-go basis. The other key element to this is, in holding, you could reevaluate the billing frequency as well over this next year. And then when you come back to set your 26-27 budget a year from now, perhaps you have, at that point, you'd have at least 3/4 of usage to evaluate. And, at that point, maybe you have more information to, evaluate things going forward. The second option is to adjust your rate mix now. And in doing so, here's what that would look like. You would have to increase your usage rate from 7.25 per 100 cubic feet to 10.25 per 100 cubic feet. You would be able to decrease your base fee from $28.26 to $21 per quarter. And you could decrease your debt fee from $52.75 to $40 per quarter. I will note that in our analyses for both the usage rate and the base fee, we're assuming a 4% inflationary increase beginning next budget year, 26-27, and thereafter. And with the debt fee, you would have to adjust that later in 26-27 or 28-29, and then in 29-30 as you layer on new debt. And of course, I do think it is worthwhile to reevaluate the billing frequency as soon as that's administratively possible. If there is a way to go to monthly billing, I think it would help the cash flow, but I think you have to also take into account the realities of what that means to the administration from a cost standpoint to the city. It would require at least a half FTE to maybe 1.0 FTE in that office to help to ensure that all that billing and increase in frequency is working accordingly. So, I really do wish I could have come here tonight and told you that there was a better option. I think it's a function of, the history that you have all inherited. And, the numbers are, I want to tell it to you straight. You have, 2 to 2.5 times the annual expenditures that you used to have. There's just no way you can sustain that under the old structure. And now that you are being proactive in evaluating the long-term capital improvement plans, as opposed to doing a pay-as-you-go basis that has been done in the past, that too is becoming a priority and built in here. So, that's our presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Jerry?
Yeah, I just wanted to, can everybody hear me, or do I need to turn this on? On the evaluation with the remix, it appears that if somebody was to use less water, that if they can conserve using water or something, that might be the cheaper option. Even though it's more expensive to go with that option, it's more based on water usage than it is on just the base fee and the debt fee and all of that. Is that correct?
That's accurate.
Okay. And I believe right now, the city is pretty close to 50%, maybe a couple percentage, between the 1-inch pipes and the 5/8-inch pipes. I know that's a big question mark. But, again, looking at those two, if the yearly is a little bit more expensive, especially for the 5/8, it's roughly $60. Excuse me, a little bit more than that, $140? No, too bad. But anyhow, the rates for the 1-inch pipes only go up a slight amount, $15.
That's correct.
Okay, on an annual fee.
Yes, so under that scenario, as opposed to going back to the old structure that was originally presented, you would see kind of call it a cost burden, if you will, kind of shifting more to the 5/8 from the 1-inch. Now, there would still be a net overall increase in both scenarios, but you will note that, kind of look at that last scenario that I presented. If you go back to slide 9, this might be the better way to explain it. So comparing, now remember, these are all being compared to the whole scenario, not to your old rate structure, not to the old bills. This is to your kind of current bills, I should say. It is to your current bills. You'll note that under the scenario where you would go back to the old step increases that were presented to you before and that were adopted by the council, the 5/8 annual bill would go up to $142.80 annually from the hold scenario, or the 1-inch would go up to $59.80. As opposed to the remix, the 5/8 would go up $135.96 from the hold, whereas the 1-inch would go up $15.90. But in the remix scenario, you'll note the 2-inch and 4-inch, in particular the 4-inch, because they're the heaviest users, are going to see the most dramatic increase in their annual water rate, water bill.
And Brody, for the sake of conversation, Brody does have a slide in there for council support that shows our meters and our breakdown. So we have 710 5/8, and then we have
Slide 13.
Yep, slide 13. Okay, and then we have 594 for the 1-inch.
Yeah, and the MEUs, the simplest way for me to explain it is it's a way for us to standardize the factor that we use to calculate people's base fees and their debt fee, okay? So the reason why there is a larger multiplier, right, for the larger water meters is because more water is flowing through there. And so as a result of that, we have to standardize that calculation. And we did put in here some defining key concepts, and of course you're happy to share this out to the public. You can call me anytime if you have questions on this, but the fundamental concept behind the MEUs is a way for us to calculate the appropriate multiplier, right? So that we can come up with the right revenue calculation, if that makes sense.
And that MEU factor, that's based off of potential water usage, right? Because you're saying that, yeah, you know, a 4-inch pipe can use, it has the potential to use more than, or if you say the 5/8 to the 1-inch, the 1-inch has more potential
Correct.
use, but not necessarily if it's a single person in a house and the neighbor has 5/8 inch pipe and there's 5 in that house, they're gonna use more water, but it's just on average and it's the potential usage, not actual
right.
usage.
That's right. Now, the base fee, you know, will include a larger, you know, multiplier and a larger cost per line. But that's, to your point, the usage would not be impacted until the water is actually flowing through.
Thank you.
If we adjust the rate fee now,
Pam, can you turn on?
oh, sorry about that.
If we adjust the rate fee now, then in the long run, we can decrease that debt fee that everybody will have to pay over time. So the bills will come down.
Well, you would be able to drop the debt fee short term. If you decided to not do any of those future capital improvement projects, you may be able to keep it there. But if you're going to maintain a healthy system of investing into the infrastructure, and those projects that have been identified by the administration in the CIP plan are inside the city's infrastructures, they're water main infrastructure. So we would see a decrease in that debt fee, a base fee initially, but eventually those will have to increase to accommodate the new debt that will be layered in.
And the capital improvements?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And in our scenario that we've presented to you, all of those future capital projects are gonna be bond funded over, it's a scenario over 15 years at a 4.25% interest rate. Now, of course, things change, we gotta reevaluate that, but bond funding those is really the only route that you can go at this point. To cash fund $1 million in 26, 27, and then again in 28, 29, that would require an even larger increase. Bond funding these capital improvement projects also allows you to spread, you know, the amortization or the paying back of that asset across, you know, a longer period of time and a longer period of households, right? So that you're matching the useful life of that asset, maybe with multiple generations. We're gonna be paying off in 15 years, but that's the concept of doing that way as well. If you can cash fund it, great, but most communities just can't do that. And that's kind of the idea behind what's happening here is, you know, the prior generations, you know, probably didn't pay as much as they should have been into the system to pay for those critical capital improvement needs that were really required along the way. And so now there's this catch-up.
Brad?
You've answered most of my questions from some of the other questions up here, but, I would actually probably have to defer to the city manager or DPW director. Who are our 4-inch users?
I'll have to defer to our city treasurer. If she, I don't know if on the fly, I couldn't.
The schools have one, Shiawassee Shores has one. Let me get you the last two. I'll just pull it up right now.
Okay.
I don't know if she'll be able to pull it up right now. But I'm gonna have to
That's
go back
okay.
there. Yeah.
No, I can't, I just gonna take
Like,
John, do you know off the other two?
Brad, did you have any other questions while Brooke's looking for that?
No, I mean, those are the major things I just want to consider. You know, we know we have to raise the rates or hold the rates. It's, thank you for the data though, appreciate it, it worked out nicely.
Okay, so we have Symphony. We have Linden Community Schools, Shiawassee Shores, and the last one is, Charter Senior Living.
Tom?
The data looks good. I like how you broke it all out for us to digest. As we know, we've got to come up with some type of good solution and keep giving us some very good information to make a legit decision on this. I do appreciate that our getting that information to us. Thank you.
Denise?
Got a couple of questions for you. Shiawassee Shores, how do they pay their water bills? Is it per customer, or does the community pay a whole?
They have one bill on the Shiawassee Shores, and how they divvy it up, I'm not aware, but
Okay.
it's just one bill.
Okay, perfect. Looking at the adjusted rate mix now, what you're saying is that would go down to 21 and 40? Correct?
That is, let me just make sure I get to the right page.
Page 10.
That's correct, yeah, so
Okay.
you'd be going from 2026 base fee to 21 and 5275 for 40.
Okay, is that for 5/8? Is that for 1 inch?
That is for 5/8.
Okay, and then it puts the onus on the customer of how much water they'd like to save, if they could save, at the 525, or 1025, correct? And that's 1800.
Yes.
Thank you for giving us all this, makes some, we'll learn the sense of it, I'll learn. And I'm gonna study this quite a bit, and thank you very much. Great presentation.
I have nothing additional, thanks.
All right, so this may be here, but I might have missed it. So how long is it being proposed for the debt fee? Is this for the entire length of the bonds, the contract of the 20 years? So that debt fee would be there for that length of time, or? Okay.
So the debt fee is calculated to really match what your current annual debt service is. That of course can be adjusted, but the concept behind it is we're trying to isolate that expenditure, which is that future principal and interest payment on the debt, on the bonds. And so, depending upon the decisions made and how you want to layer in future capital improvement projects, but there's already some that have been bond funded that are on the books, and you have to set that rate appropriately. The 5275 number, while it might be a little higher today than needed, will quickly be the appropriate level in the future. And typically when people are setting that debt fee, they're looking into the future.
Okay.
To make sure there's enough now to cover those that are gonna layer in the future.
Okay, and then, might be redundant, I did read the portion on this, but I still wanna ask the question. How did you come up with, or, is it standard practice, is this a standard multiplier, is it your multiplier, as far as for the meter sizes? And, I would just like that.
Perfect question, and I wasn't sure how much of a, water 101 I should get into tonight, but, it's the right question, and the American Water Works Association has developed that structure. That called a meter multiplier or factor table is universally known and used. There's no really reason to move away from that. I mean, that's the standard for which we can appropriately place those expenditures, those fixed expenditures to the other, to the different meter sizes. So that is from the AWWA, and I do have, well, you saw the calculation there, which is here on page 12. Well, the full calculation is later, but this is that the key defining concept as it relates to MEU it's all being multiplied off of the 5/8 inch line. So the larger the line, larger the multiplier.
And then one last question, and this one is gonna be for you, Brooke. So do the community schools do they only have one water line, or do they have multiple?
Each school has their own account. I don't know if that's what you're asking.
So I know that there has to be one to run it down to Argentine.
Are you
Right.
aware of the line that runs out to the school?
Into the school, yeah, are they all 4-inch, or do we have any of them that might be 3-inch? And I don't know if I'm off base with that as far as.
So one of the schools have a 4-inch meter, the others have.
It depends on the usage of each school or like the multipurpose, facility. So that's all engineered design on the flow rate that they're gonna need for a particular building. So it does vary, but there is only one line going out in that
Okay.
direction.
Okay, all right, that's what I was wondering, because of where the schools were located, all right.
Madam Mayor, may I ask one more question? Is the average, usage, do you know where the normal is for different people? I know it's different families, different sizes, but in that, it's 1,800 cubic.
Correct, in fact, if you go to page 14, slide 14, no, 15, there it is. So, to kind of give you that visual of how we came up with the averages, looking from left to right, the first column is the meter size, the total usage in cubic feet annually, then divided by the total number of customers for each of those different meter sizes, comes up with your average annual use. Obviously, I think most people know that the 5/8 and 1-inch lines are most prevalent within your community. And you'll note that they both, on average, right, run around 16 to 1690, 1630 to 1690. What we did was we took that additional 2100 average, okay, and then divided that over, some of those, the usage, and you get up to about 1800 when you sprinkle in the lawn water usage on average. And again, you'll note though, that most people, because there's only 75 people with that lawn water meter, the additional lawn water meter, they're gonna be probably running closer to that 1600 to 1700 number. So our calculation, we tend to be more conservative, is probably, a little high, I'd say, for most people, except those that are using the lawn water.
Can I ask one more question? Lawn water, it's probably, important to reach out to the residents out here that have lawn water and they're watering the grass, to come in and get another, meter put on, or how they calculate the water between the sewer, what's going down the sewer and what's going in the grass? Is that possible?
I would probably defer that question to Don and maybe the engineers as it relates to, the best practice there, but as far as the, lawn water meters that have been installed, I think it's a good thing, just so that people are being charged appropriately for just the lawn water usage. And of course, in that case, they're not going to be paying sewer on that, and I'll let Don speak to that technicality.
Okay, thank you.
And Brooke will correct me, but if they're counted as lawn water, then they are not paying the sewer fee associated with it, because it's a separate independent meter that calculates what's being used for lawn use only.
As long as they have that meter on, distinguishing between the lawn water and the drink water.
As long as they have a lawn meter, yes.
Do you know what,
account.
do you know what the price is to put that on where people might not have had that added on before? And now they'd like to get it to, which, you know what the cost is?
I believe purchasing a lawn meter is $400
400, correct?
for the meter, and then obviously they'd have to have it installed.
Thank you very much.
And just to add to that, typically if we have someone with high usage and our staff has identified it's because they were watering their lawn, they do encourage them, to add on a meter if necessary and stuff, so.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
I don't have the calculation, sorry Denise, but, the savings, if you are a heavy lawn water or you're filling a pool, the savings in the long run, I believe it pays for itself, the lawn meter, that 400 in a couple of years, because you are not paying for that sewer charge. So,
Thank you.
I wanna thank you, Mr. Killian, for coming in today, and answering all of our questions. And as far as, resident questions, those, when it comes back, so that everybody has an opportunity to view it, ponder it, and be able to answer the questions, because this is fairly fresh. So when it comes back to council, we'll be going to and doing resident questions at that time, I guess, okay? All right, moving to the next is the proclamation recognizing life-saving efforts.
So tonight we have a privilege of recognizing several individuals whose actions directly resulted in saving a life within our community. The life-saving recognition honors the outstanding efforts of our Linden Fire and Police. Outstanding efforts of our Linden Fire and Police Departments, MedStar, and Alpine staff. I thank each and every one of them for their incredible service that day and every day. And Chief Sutter, I know he has a few words, and we'll be able to present the.
Absolutely. Everybody's coming up here at a part of this. And I'd like to also invite, let's see who else is up here. Paramedics are here, yep, good, from MedStar. I'd also like to invite Tracy Salton, Jessica Taylor, and Scott Trump, if they're here. As you can see, these individuals, every single individual here played a part in this. And I'd also like to bring up the man that they saved, Greg Love, and his son, because he was there as well. I just want to tell you, these saves, and I'm going to get into what happened. These saves, it's about 1 in 100. 1 in 100. You're a miracle, man. And I mean that. You are. And I appreciate it. And, so, today we officially recognize and commend the following individuals for their life-saving efforts. Linden Fire Chief Brian Will, Linden Fire Department Captain Marta Wright, Linden Fire Department Lieutenant Ray Davis. He's not with us today. Linden Fire Lieutenant Anthony Carr, Linden Firefighter John Miller, Linden Police Officer Brian Wilburn, MedStar Paramedic Christy Ungarski, MedStar EMT Victoria Callard, Alpine employees Tracy Salton, Jessica Taylor, and Scott Trump. On April 14, 2025, Linden Fire Department was dispatched to Alpine Market, 604 West Broad, in reference to a full arrest. Mr. Love not breathing. Linden Police Ryan Wilburn was also dispatched. Linden Police, upon Officer Wilburn's arrival, he observed his subject in the office lying on the floor and not breathing. With staff from Alpine, Tracy, Jessica, and Scott administering CPR, Officer Wilburn found that the patient was unresponsive and did not have a pulse and was not breathing. Officer Wilburn then took over CPR on the patient. A short time later, our fire personnel arrived on the scene to assist, and so did MedStar as well. An automated external defibrillator was then utilized, delivering a shock to the patient, to Mr. Love. Also, they used the Lucas machine, which we purchased, council approved, assisting with the CPR. Due to the efforts of the personnel on scene, a pulse was finally detected, and Mr. Love began to breathe on his own. Exactly. The patient was transported to the hospital. Mr. Love was transported to the hospital. He was recently released. I wasn't sure if he was going to be here today. I believe it was your first day of work today, wasn't it? Yeah. Wow. He went back to work. As a direct result of their immediate life-saving actions, the life of Mr. Love was saved. Their professionalism, dedication, and actions in the highest tradition of the Linden Police and Fire Departments, and for our community, you guys too, we commend all of you. I just want to thank each one of you. On that day, each one of you stepped up and saved a life. This is what our community is all about. It's about individuals like all of you, citizens, paramedics, EMTs, firefighters, and police officers. We often see some of the most negative and divisive comments on social media and other places. Don't listen to that.
Amen.
Our community is about hope. And on April 14th, you gave that man, Mr. Love, and his family, hope. And you give us hope by what you did and what you do every day, and we want to thank you. Say there's going to be a proclamation, and every one of you are going to get one of those, okay? And I appreciate everything. And I thank God. I appreciate it. Yes, and I thank God you're here. I do. Amen. Thank you so much. We're dismissed.
We have no public hearings tonight. We have no correspondence, so that's going to move us on to public comments. Individuals wishing to speak will be called upon utilizing the completed public comment cards. Remarks should be addressed to the presiding officer. It is not a time for debate, but for comments or questions for council and/or staff to answer or research. Questions will be answered during the meeting if information is readily available. If answers are not available during the meeting, council or staff will contact the individual within 1 week or 7 business days, or when the information becomes available. No person shall have the right to speak more than once on any particular subject until all persons wishing to be heard on that subject have had the opportunity to speak. Aaron, and I'm sorry if I messed your name up, Brebois?
Karen Griswold, 4079 Minnetonka Drive, Linden, Michigan. My question has to do with the mill, and I'm wondering where we're at as far as progress on renovation. Not seeing much from the outside, so I don't know what there's stuff going on inside, but I'd like an update for the community so that we know that something's being done with the money that Mr. Mueller got us through the grant. Someone gonna update the group?
Oh, she'll be, usually the city manager does that, sorry.
Okay.
During her manager update.
Okay.
She'll write down everybody's questions and try to
Okay,
give what she can.
thank you, Mayor.
Tara Phillips.
Tara Phillips, 715 Riverside. First of all, I need to apologize. I'm working on very little sleep. This is in regards to water. John O'Brien from Genesee, Director of Water and Waste for Genesee County, spoke at the 4/14/25 work session. I would like to touch base on a couple things he stated. He said the Division of Waterways is a quasi-agency of the county and they operate separate from the county. That's really important. They run their own books and audits. As I mentioned at the last meeting, I have a concern with this, separation of power. I want to see where my taxpayer dollars are going. As I mentioned before, I would like an outside audit done by we the citizens' choice of business to handle this audit. Jeff Wright is the elected Genesee County Drain Commissioner. He spoke at the 1/29/25 Genesee County meeting. As I mentioned at the last meeting, he said they received $29 million for sewer and drain projects to improve their infrastructure and keep the rates low. I just wanted to reiterate here, Jeff Wright is our elected Genesee County Drain Commissioner. And since Genesee County Drain Commission Company is a separate entity, which is what John O'Brien stated, and said they audit their own books, go look and see who sits on that board of this separate entity of Genesee County Drain Commission. It's Jeff Wright. The Genesee County Commission voted to move $29 million to a business in which Jeff Wright sits on. Look at the website. Secondly, I would like to confirm if the Genesee County Drain Commissioner entity and the GCDC Service Water Management are two divisions or two separate entities. This is really important. I ask because once again, Jeff Wright sits on both these boards. If you look at their URLs, they are slightly different. Sometimes you can't catch it with your eye because it's slightly different, but they're two different websites. I understand the water is being sourced from Lake Huron, but can you confirm if Kirigandi, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Water Authority, KWA, is also involved at all? The reason why I bring this up is, guess what? Jeff Wright sits on this board. I have an extreme concern with Jeff Wright sitting on 3 boards, and yet our county voted to move $29 million in ARPA funds. That's our hard-earned money moving there. As an outside audit needs to be done so that we know and can see the flow of our money. I want to make sure that not only Linden, but every county is getting their fair share of funding. So before this vote goes to increase the water, you can listen to what he says, that's fine. But we need that audit done to see that Linden is getting their fair share here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ramona Dees.
Ramona Dees, 506 North Bridge Street in Linden. It's my opinion that nothing should be wasted or end up in landfill if someone could use it. A LOCI member wanted to purchase and remove the porch. He was willing to pay LOCI a fair price, I believe it was $3,000, and he would remove the porch. Now this was before the city took over LOCI. He was not allowed to do so after the city took over LOCI, and the porch materials were destroyed when it was torn down. If the city manager and city council were concerned about liability, there was another option. When the house on LOCI property was torn down, a former LOCI board member contacted Habitat for Humanity. They are insured. They came to LOCI and removed everything that was salvageable. Even if buildings are contaminated with asbestos or mold, there are materials such as windows, doors, water heaters, furnaces, electrical materials, and so on that can be safely removed, cleaned up, and reused. I hope that in the future the City of Linden will take steps to avoid waste of usable items. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Preston.
I need it clarified. The 4% that he's talking about up here, is that like 4% this year, then add another 4% the following year, and then so it's like 4, 8, 12? Just keep on adding 4%? And how long is this 4%? Is it the length of the bond? Are we able to get a 30-year bond instead of a 20-year bond to help the residents? And I'm asking for the audits to be done too. I think they should, and it looks very suspicious. And I think the guy did a great presentation. As far as the number goes, I'm a numbers person. The guy did great. I think the fix one, the second option was actually the better option of the two.
Thank you. Monica Larner.
Monica Larner, 152 West Ralston Road, Linden. So first, I want to thank Mr. Brad for the quick response to my concern with helping the downtown business. Mr. Brad seems to be the only one who tries to answer or respond to my emails. I'm still waiting for responses going back to December 9th. I feel that the consent agenda should not be used to push things through without a chance to discuss, especially the financial and the bills. For instance, going back to March, why the Byram Lake refunds were there. And I would like to know why the city manager gets a $1,000 travel expense for 4 months, while another person only gets $19. That seems a little off to me. I feel that the letters or correspondence are not given adequate attention. They're just flashed up on the screen and they aren't discussed. So I noticed that the city manager at like the last meeting talks over the top of the mayor and other city councilors. I see city councilors talking behind their hands to each other, or they're on their phones. So getting back to the unethical postings on social media by city employees, used to be called a volunteer, which wasn't the truth, now is saying that they are a city employee. So now I'm being targeted on Nextdoor for helping a senior in Shiawassee Shores. So this city employee has a long list of bashing renters, veterans, disabled veterans, charities, well owners, seniors. When is it gonna end? This is not the way the city should be. I had a complaint about the trash mountain on the corner, and the city manager said she was gonna get back with me. Nothing came back to me. There was nothing on the police report. My complaints don't make it to the police reports. I don't know why. I feel that the city manager and the city council does not work with the mayor. Why does the city manager get to make the motions? For instance, on today's agenda, she's got 3 motions there. I thought that motions were made by the council.
Ms. Lerner, time is up, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We are now going to the consent agenda. There are 3 items. The minutes, resolution number 0625, adoption of fiscal year budget.
Madam Mayor, really quickly, sorry. I didn't know, do you want me to try to address some of the questions right now? So if individuals didn't have time to stay. Sorry, let me just go back here. Update on the mill. Don, do you want to provide an update on the mill for Ms. Rico?
The architect is finalizing, putting final touches on the plans. There's been one update since they were submitted, I think about 2 weeks ago, corrections. And the general contractor is getting ready and prepared to put that out to bid so that they can receive construction bid estimates back. So I think you'll be seeing some things probably in the next month or so, as far as, actions coming back before council for decisions to be made.
I think my battery died on this, so I apologize, but I think I can speak loud enough. So in reference to Tara's comments in regards to the water, the separation of powers, the ARPA funding and things like that, unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to answer those questions. Those are really for the county to answer, so I would definitely encourage some correspondence to them to hopefully answer your questions. Ms. Dees, appreciate the comments. I was not aware of a previous member of LOCI wanting to purchase any portion of the porch. Obviously, the porch was damaged to the point where we had to act quickly because it was damaged during one of the storms and things, so appreciate that. Judy, you mentioned something in regards to clarifying the 4% increases and how long. I will follow up with you after clarification from Brody's presentation and things like that. Monica, I guess at this point, I would encourage you to, after the meeting, just schedule a time with me and we can sit down and meet and we can go through all of your concerns at any point. Happy to address that. So obviously there's a lack of understanding on my part as to what you're directly looking for a lot of these different items. So happy to chat with you. And I think that's it. Sorry. Just thought I could quickly take care of it in case.
Okay. So we go back to the consent agenda, council meeting minutes from April 14th, resolution number 0625, adoption of fiscal year 2024-2025 budget amendments, and the financial reports. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Dick,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Simons,
Yes.
Link,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Toad.
Yes.
All right. So we have no unfinished business. We're going to be moving on now to the new business. Tonight, we're going to, as far as if you have questions, after we present the topic, we'll do 3 minutes. If you're speaking for a group, 10 minutes. On behalf of the HOA, what have you, you can do 10 minutes. But otherwise, please keep it to 3 minutes tonight. And we're gonna start off with Forest Ridge Estates Preliminary Unit Development, the PUD.
Adam, do you want to start us off with that and where we're at? I figured it was best to just let Adam jump in and kind of walk us through where we're at.
Yes, I did provide a memo in your packet to council summarizing this project and where we're at in the process and what steps need to be taken at this point as far as council action. This is Forest Ridge Estates, a proposed 30-unit, single-family detached residential site condominium to be located along Andrea Avenue between Pauline Pass and Laura Lane. The project is proposing to be developed under a planned unit development, PUD option of the City of Linden zoning ordinance that allows for clustered lots that are below the minimum lot width and lot area requirements of the underlying zoning district, which is R2 district, so as to preserve open space within the development. The city's zoning ordinance requires PUDs to go through a 3-step review process. Preliminary plan review was conducted by the city's planning commission in February of 2024. Planning commission held, as required, a public hearing at that time. They approved the preliminary plan. It then went back to the planning commission for final plan review after a public hearing. That public hearing was held on July 1st of 2024. The planning commission then took many months, tabled it on several occasions. Ultimately, after receiving a revised plan unit development plan from the applicant in January, at the planning commission's February 3rd 2025 meeting, they recommended approval of the final PUD plan with 6 recommended approval contingencies for the city council to consider. The zoning ordinance gives the city council the final authority for approval of a planned unit development. And so the planning commission's recommendation is in front of you. At this stage in the process, the 3rd stage in the process, the ordinance does not require a public hearing. In the memo, I did list the 6 recommended considerations as far as conditions of approval that the planning commission has provided for the city council. I'd be glad to go through any of those if you have specific questions about those. The city council action to be taken. So per the zoning ordinance, upon receiving a recommendation from the planning commission, the council should review the final planned unit, the final PUD plan, taking into consideration the recommendations of the planning commission and the criteria and standards outlined in the zoning ordinance. Ultimately, the city council shall approve or deny the final PUD plan, or you may table if you need additional information before you're ready to make a decision of approval or denial. Ultimately, the city council shall require all of the standards and conditions of approval to be incorporated into a development agreement to be reviewed and approved by the city attorney. So that's a legal document that would memorialize the site plans, the documentation, and any conditions of approval that you might have attached to your approval. I did outline in the zoning ordinance, it discusses how you can make conditions and what the conditions would need to address. We also included we provided our sample or our typical construction stage review process, our checklist. So that's in your packet as well in case you're interested. Even after a project gets through the planning commission, or in this case, the planning commission and city council, we have a checklist that we use for all projects that need to go through the detailed construction plan and engineering plan review process, construction inspection, building permit review process, outside permits that need to be secured as well. We thought that might be helpful for your information. I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor. If you have any questions for me at this point, I'd be glad to try and answer them.
All right, so, Mr. I have a question in regards, and if I call it the wrong thing, I apologize, about performance guarantees. So I know that there is a performance guarantee already with the city. And that covers lighting, so on and so forth, okay? What I'm specifically talking about is a performance guarantee for the road or a lane that they are using in accordance with the PUD agreement. Wanting to make sure that there is money set back. And so if that, A, can that happen? B, if that happens, who is responsible for the making sure that, you know, what the planning commission asked for, i.e. that the road is returned to its original state? Who is the one that's responsible for making sure that that occurs?
I can answer the first part of your question, confirming that yes, the zoning ordinance does require, in fact, one of the planning commission's recommended conditions of approval is that the applicant would be required per the ordinance to submit a performance guarantee. The performance guarantee essentially ensures that the required improvements, so that would include the streets, the utilities, the landscaping, the lighting, stormwater systems, essentially all of the infrastructure except for the actual units themselves, not the dwelling units, but everything else that's shown as what they're, or what would be shown on the approved site plan that would need to be installed. The purpose of the performance guarantee is if for some reason the applicant does not install the improvements as per the approved plan, that the city can then, as remedies, to tap into the performance guarantee. Performance guarantee is, the amount of that is established first by the applicant, who would itemize all of the improvements and the costs of those improvements. It would then be reviewed by the city staff to ensure that what the applicant has indicated as the cost is reasonable and does in fact cover the estimated cost as agreed upon by the city. And then the performance guarantee would only be returned at the end of the project, or the applicant could request that portions of that guarantee be returned only upon confirmation that the improvements have actually been made to the city's standards. To the second point, I think maybe the city engineer can provide a little bit more information on that question.
So what we have done in the past, for road, when there's projects that are utilizing roadways, we have been hired by Detroit Edison or Consumers Energy to go out and do what they call PASER ratings of roadways. PASER ratings are a standardized method of rating what the condition that the roads are in. This is done, let's say when they're coming in to put in a wind farm or a solar farm. The communities typically want to have their roads rated beforehand to make sure there's no damage being done. And then typically what we'll do is go out afterwards and do a second rating after the work is done to ensure that there are no damage, or if there is, it's reported. So what we could do here is we could do that where there's a PASER rating done on the roadway beforehand, and I would also recommend that a video be taken of the roadway. And then once the work is completed, another rating is done of the roads to see if there was any deterioration, or, you know, along with the video taken, just so that we have a way to confirm what's there. And then there could also be, and I don't know what this would look like yet, but there could also be a bond placed over the roadway so that if there is damage, there is a bond in place to repair the roads if the developer were to not do that work. So there are remedies for that.
That was exactly what I was asking about, was that particular bond to cover Laura thing in specific. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else, any other counselors have questions for Adam?
No. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was getting ready. Mr. Neiman.
Yes, I'm getting them around the applicant. I just want to know if there was any questions that you guys had to let's see.
All right,
I also have my attorneys here and engineers here, so they may be better suited to answer some of these questions depending on what they are.
Jerry?
I know there was a discussion about having two water contained areas. The one on the, I guess that would be the west side of the property.
Yes.
Looking at the pictures on the map and walking the property, those are fed by gravity, right? Water draining into those?
Storm drain,
Typically?
yes.
Yes, okay. When I'm standing in the middle of the property, the one that is to the west side there, seems like it's higher. Is the plan that how are you getting water into that if it's actually higher than where, say, the three wetland areas are?
I guess I'm not following where.
Well, it's a retention pond, right,
Yeah.
for the water to drain off into. My question is, if it's higher than the surrounding area, how does the water drain into the retention pond?
If the retention pond is higher than this.
Right, that's like with Fenton Lands being engineering.
All right.
We're only taking the 7 lots that are up in that cul-de-sac because they are as high, if not higher, and
Okay.
taking just those, and basically it's like 5.5 acres that we're rerouting to that new detention basin. The rest of it, you're right, is lower. It has to go to the existing one that's over on the east side.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to the the other detention system, not the new one that we're gonna be putting in.
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry.
that one is just actually taking care of the existing subdivision, the water that's coming from that's, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Pam?
Once you do get the PUD approved, then the next step is to work with the Genesee County Drain Commission and make sure that's all working properly so there won't be any issues, correct?
We've already
Correct.
started.
Yeah,
And-
that's what I thought.
And with your city engineer as well.
Yeah.
Right, right. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Brenda?
No questions.
Denise?
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
The existing homeowners right now have water coming into their basements. They have, a lot of wetness on the grounds you're gonna be putting homes in. Do you plan on putting basements on those homes?
We do.
Do you?
We do.
Is there any guarantees for basements that won't get the water coming in?
I mean,
I know, I'm
I
asking a
just-
big question, I just, I worry about.
That's kind of a loaded question. I mean, I can't answer that really. I mean, there's no guarantees. We can't answer that, but I mean, we're doing what we can. We're doing what we can in such a way that would, that we're gonna shed water away from the homes and do whatever we can to get them to the storm drain, which will then go to the detention systems, and any overflow, would go into the, river, right? The Shiawassee
The mill
River.
pond.
Mill pond, yeah.
Okay. I guess my other question is, there is, flooding in the back of some of the existing homes. Is there, no, so that,
So
retention
that new
pond,
detention pond that we're creating is going to, well, from what everywhere that we've seen that is wet, the new detention pond that we are doing should alleviate that entire area. That's the purpose of it.
Except for the existing wetlands that are there, we cannot.
You can't touch the wetlands, of course, but I mean, for the flooding that's coming in from, I don't remember the name of this, the cul-de-sac that's
Nicole?
above.
Is it Nicole?
I think it is Nicole. The flooding that's coming in there, coming down on our property,
We can pick up part of it.
yes.
Some of it's going to the wetlands, and we're trying to reroute as much as we can and bring it into our detention basin, but again, we cannot go into the wetlands and route that water into our system.
But it will alleviate a significant amount of
Yes.
standing water, for sure.
right, because you have residents in,
100%.
those homes that are really concerned.
And those two empty
about their
lots
homes.
kind of at the end of Nicole, right, have a lot of water, have been sitting in them, so we are gonna take as much as we can, by legally, right, that we can, and bring it to our system.
Okay, and that hopefully will help the existing homeowners.
That's the purpose of it,
I'm not
yes.
sure what the road is.
I think it is Nicole.
I'm saying it.
I'm not, yeah, I'm not.
Okay, I'm getting some head shakes, so, okay. All right, well, I guess that's it. I just want to talk to these homeowners and our, new homeowners. to come.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tom?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Brad?
No, that was it. When Dave said the survey for the road, that was what I put in, the recommendation from the planning commission is to do a video survey in case you're already on the road. So the road is, Laurel Lane be rated, so for any damages or repairs, I think we're good there. And hopefully, drainage and detention, we worked out with our engineers and, the county, we'll be ready to go.
I have a couple questions. All right, so given in some of those areas, there is a high water table. Are you putting basements in the homes even with the high water table?
I mean, the plan is to do it, yes. The plan is to put basements in on all the houses. To see which lot has a high water table and which doesn't.
Until we get up there.
Yeah, we really don't know until we.
We were
until we
told
get
there's a
estimate.
high water table as well,
Yeah.
so we kinda got that in the back of our head, right? So, again, when we start digging, if we start getting water, we're gonna get pumps and we're gonna have to pump them out and, again, do what we can. And at that point in time, it'll be Danny's choice, right, to say, hey, look, it's crazy cost to put basements in, we might have to switch it up.
These are things that, I mean, obviously, we're gonna have to make that determination in the field. We don't know what we're getting into until we actually start digging. And we do know some of the areas that we think have a high water area. And these are things that, well, we're gonna address it when and if it becomes an issue.
The second question I have for you. So there's a detention basin on, back behind Laurel there was a proposal to build a berm. and-
That's out.
Yeah, no,
I want
no
that.
berms.
Yep, yep. Dave made me take it out.
Perfect,
No berm.
okay. And then, are you for doing a separate bond for the roads, for Laura Lane specifically? Would you be opposed to that?
I think I'll probably defer that to the attorney. There's a lot of legalities that are kind of falling behind this. So I'd rather not comment on that. If he wants to come up and got it, he's coming up.
Hello, my name is George Rizik, R-I-Z-I-K. My office is in Grand Blanc. I looked at the, I always look at site plans and I think of soccer. Okay, I know in Linden here, you have a lot of soccer, parents. And when I first had my kids play soccer, everybody, offsides, no, that's not offsides. So I had to figure out what offsides was. And I finally got it figured out, okay? And there are like 4 elements to offsides. And so all 4 of those have to be satisfied and it's offsides. If one of them is missing, it's not offsides. So that's like site plans and plans like this. And generally, if a plan meets the requirements of the ordinance, if a plan meets the requirements of any other local laws, not just the zoning ordinance, all engineering requirements of your local ordinance, all published, even published policies of the city, as well as state and federal laws, then the plan has to be granted. And I always warn my developers, if you're missing one of those and they turn you down, don't you complain, because you're the one that didn't satisfy those requirements. So there's a series of elements they have to satisfy. If they satisfy them, it's offsides. If they don't satisfy them, it's not offsides. Maybe the reverse is true. So I went through the planning commission's, their recommendation. I thought it was really well done. It was 8 to nothing. They said they recommend approval with 6 conditions. The first 5 were right on. The 6th one is what bothered me, and that was, it suggested to me that they didn't want construction traffic on Andrea, which is the public road. They wanted construction traffic only on Laura Lane. Now, we all know all we're asking for there, I think, is trouble. Because the owners on Laura Lane, okay, it's a private road, okay, they have an attorney who keeps on telling them that we should beat up Danny Niemer on this. More power to him. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, and he's representing his client. We should beat up on Danny Niemer and make him fix our road. Well, when this was approved, when that section, Forest Ridge Linden, was approved years ago, okay, nobody asked them to post a bond, the developer of that particular project. That developer never finished that road. And if they actually did post a bond, it was never popped by the city when it could have been. And so I think what's happening is we're trying to slough that off onto Mr. Niemer, and as opposed to the original developer or some financial assurance that he should have posted with the city at that time. Now, we have no problem if we damage a road, whether it's public or private, we should pay for it. Okay, my problem is how do we monitor what's causing the problems on the road? Because technically what you're doing, if you're doing sort of a baseline determination of what the road's like today, and then a baseline determination at the end of the infrastructure, we don't know what's gone in between. The condition of the road is a snapshot, it's not a movie. So we have 2 snapshots, and then we're gonna try to interpolate between those two snapshots, beginning and end, what's wrong with the road, and we're gonna blame it all on construction. I would just assume, and that's exacerbated by the fact that the homeowners in Forest Ridge Glens, and I feel so terribly for them that their developer never finished their road, because this was during the heyday of development, nobody was following the rules. They were kicking these things out one after another. The escrow agents are not following the rules. They were supposed to hold money for the roads. They didn't do it under the Michigan Condominium Act. Bonds were being posted and not posted haphazardly because things were moving so quickly. Even title work was terrible. People were buying property, they didn't even have good title, they didn't get the title insurance policies for years. So when things were moving fast, okay, things fell through the cracks, and this was one of them. So it's not their fault, okay, it's the prior developer's fault, and the title insurance company's fault. But now we're saying it's time to fix it, and so I don't think Mr. Niemer should be the scapegoat for that. I would just as soon use Andrea Lane, since it's a public road, and then you know you can get the money from us. We don't have a problem posting a bond for Andrea Lane, because it's built up to public road specs. Laura Lane is not. So if we use Andrea Lane for construction, no problem posting a bond, because I think that's pretty typical. But on a private road over which you really have no jurisdiction, and nobody has jurisdiction except that association, it makes it difficult for us to, I guess, monitor who's causing the problems with the road. A public road that's built to really heavy specs, and you got a great cross section there as opposed to Laura Lane. And with that great cross section, you can measure our damage.
Okay, so I'm gonna re-ask the question, because it really is only a yes or a no. With Laura Lane, are you willing to lay down whatever performance bond that both our attorney and you can work out to satisfy, because that was what the planning commission had recommended?
Yeah, it begs the question what your attorney and I can work out. The answer is yes and no. If it comes to something agreeable, absolutely. If we come to something that's not agreeable, I cannot do that. I can't tell Mr. Niemer to assume, tell everybody to assume that anything that happens to Laura Lane is his fault. I can do that on Andrea Lane because it's built correctly. Laura Lane is not. So I don't have a problem doing it. You said Andrea Lane, I'd be nodding my head faster than you could. Okay? I don't want to destroy their road.
Okay, thank you.
The other problem is it allows the homeowners association's attorney to sort of hold that sort of Damocles over our head and saying, we are not going to, because remember, he's trying to stop us from using Laura Lane. So today, even if I said, yes, we use Laura Lane, we'll post a bond, he's going to say, you can't use Laura Lane, we'll go to court to try to stop you from doing that, and two, give us some money.
Your client has deeded access to Laura Lane.
Absolutely. And
So
deeded
if
access,
the city was to, if we were going to reverse our decision to use, put traffic down Laura Lane and say use Andrea, he still has deeded access to Laura Lane. So how are you going to guarantee the homeowners on Laura Lane, the city, and everybody else that the contractors aren't going to use the shortest route to the job site?
I don't know that it is the shortest route. It may very well be by a few feet, but the point is, it's like anything else. If you say the contractors must use Laura Lane, we can't stop them from using Andrea. So it's 6 one, half dozen the other. I mean, how do I monitor that? I would just assume they use Andrea, and then you could actually hold it over our head because it is a public road and not a private road. And you're not handing an advantage to anybody at that point and saying, we're gonna force them to use Laura Lane. Now, homeowners association, have at them and make them, use whatever forces you have to stop them from using Laura Lane until they give you money. Once again, I don't want to put the city in a position of siding with one or the other. But other than the 6 conditions, that's the only one that caused me heartburn, only because it's a problem with monitoring.
All right, so, this is a representative from council on the planning commission.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, but, so there is a difference as well. So with Andrea being a city road, that's called a special assessment district for every single resident that lives on that road. And at this point in time, I do not believe that the residents on that road are interested in paying so that your client can have full access for 3 to 5 years. That road is already not in great shape. You're saying one thing, I know another. It's not in great shape. And so, that the reason that it was going the other way over on Laura was specifically because of that. Because when you do a special assessment, we've had to do them in this city, and they're hard for every resident. And so that is why you were going over there, and the cooperation was supposed to be had between you guys and Laura Lane. And so, if that has not happened, have you reached out to Laura Lane,
You have-
and
you
their
have-
HOA?
Yes, you have a report from me.
Mhm.
From, when we came to
Recently?
the planning commission back in January, I believe it was, and I actually laid out all the correspondence, and I saw it actually on the engineer's, review on the video tonight. I saw him going through those. I actually laid out each letter that we had sent back and forth to each other. And I don't know if that's in your packet, it certainly wasn't the planning commission's packet. I think you remember, I laid it out just so that we had a chronological order of everything that went through. And every time we suggested something, here's what we suggested. We suggested to the association, I don't know if they received this from their attorney or not. We suggested to the association that we would, after everything was all done, there'd be 79 units. And we would pay 30 79s, they would pay 49 79s, because they have 49 units, and we have 30. Of all future repairs, maintenance, replacement. We also said that before we start, we would wedge up the road, or make repairs to the road, so that existing potholes would not be exacerbated by heavy construction traffic, particularly with the freeze-thaw, that we have here in Michigan. So we said we would wedge that up, and then after construction, okay, we would do that. And if they're gonna be using our roads too. They're gonna be coming through our roads and going up through Andrea, because it's a circle. We said, you pay 49 79s of our roads, we'll pay 30 79s of your roads. Our roads are gonna be new, so their 49 79s is gonna be almost zero for many years. So, at least of our roads. We suggested that to them. No, 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 and no. They wanted us to bring Laura Lane up to county standards, or to city standards, before we started construction. Or they wanted us to make Laura Lane essentially a new road after construction was done. Once again, we were not the ones who built Laura Lane efficiently or defectively. We were not the ones who failed to complete Laura Lane when it was supposed to have been completed 20 years ago. Somebody else failed these residents, but it was not us.
On that one, I do not disagree with you. I
know,
absolutely agree
and
with you on that one.
If we could all go back and do it over, we get real smart.
I just wanna make sure that that's not done again, to the residents. I wanna make sure that every resident, moving forward, is covered as far as the roads. So if this was approved tonight, would you be using Andrea Avenue?
I would like to use that for construction, and I'd like you to do the baseline on Andrea Avenue and do as much monitoring of Andrea Avenue during the course of our construction as possible, and hit us. Make us force us to post a bond on Andrea Avenue. I think that is so appropriate.
All right, I
And
think.
then the need for special assessments gone, because
No, there's still.
we're doing our damage.
There's still other roads, but, okay. Does anyone else have any further questions?
So, number 6 of the plan commission was, the survey and stuff. So instead of Laura Lane, you would do the survey on Andrea?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and notate all that. Okay, that makes good use.
But we don't want to fight with our neighbors, we really don't.
So if we were to put this through tonight, we could just reword that and say, the surveys be done on Andrea Lane with your due diligence on the road itself.
Once again, in cooperation with your engineers who know how to do this stuff.
Madam Mayor and Council, for just a good visual of what still, Adam did provide in the packet, a checklist of items that would still, even if this was approved, this is what they would have to walk through and get full approval from the professionals and the staff before anything was to happen. And this is standard for all of our processes. But I think the question was asked of us is how do we track this, or how do we make sure that we hold them to what was approved? And so this is just a good visual, just for reference. It's in the packet, so.
Well, up until tonight, Andrea had not come into play. I had only ever really heard Laura. And so given new information, and I think that there needs to be, some more conversation. And so I'm gonna make a motion to postpone this until next council meeting Because that's new, that is not,
With all due respect, Madam Mayor, I did propose that twice before. It may not have made it to your packet, but I did propose it twice before. So I
but it's
suggested
not,
that forcing
it
us
was
to use.
not what the council, or the planning
Oh,
commission.
no, that's not what their recommendation said.
Right.
But once again, I think, once again, with all due respect, where you're wanting to make sure you have information,
Yeah.
with all due respect, I think their recommendation, 5 of their conditions are absolutely perfect. Okay, it's the 6th one that requires a slight modification, and once again, they're only recommending. You get to call the shots here.
I've made a motion just to postpone it until the next meeting, next council meeting in May.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Link,
Yes.
Simons,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
I count 7-0.
Motion carries.
Thank you, thanks for your time, thanks for your questions. Appreciate it.
He has one more question, Tom. Yes.
Ask away.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question. You said that you were gonna start digging, and when you dig, if you run into too much water, then you'll make the decision that you put a basement in or not.
Yeah, I think what he's suggesting is, the site plan has nothing to do with houses. You can get an approved site plan and never build a house. When they go to build a house, is when they're gonna excavate the basement. If it fills up with water, they'll pump. They'll contact their structural engineers and their soils engineers and say, what can we do here? They may say something as simple as, you need double sump pumps, you need, if it's so bad that it's got a load bearing issue, you may have to put in piers and things like that for construction of the house, or don't do a basement on this particular house.
So, well, my question is, and if you let me finish, please, was, isn't there a test, a soil boring test or a perk test or something, that'll give you this information up front? So you know, what your foundation's gonna be.
But only localizes it. We don't know what size house is gonna go in each lot, so we would have to bore 4 corners and then intermittently between the 4 corners to make sure that at that particular rate, and then we could get the foundation all right, and in the middle, there's a vein of peat or something like that. So, today, if we were gonna do 30 houses, we'd probably have to do 12 borings, 10 or 12 borings per lot. Okay, so you're talking 360 borings.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, that's gonna be covered by building department as well. We can't throw a foundation in the basement.
Okay, so for clarification for staff, and so, Adam's here and Dave Richmond and those, and obviously Mike, so we just need clarification as to what, yes, you made a motion to postpone, but what are the items that need to be resolved, so when it does come back, the conversation?
And, so the Andrea Avenue performance bond, whether or not, according to the PUD, because I had always been told with the PUD that it went down Laura. Is that for the longest time while it was in planning, it was Laura. Now, all of a sudden tonight, it's revisited with Andrea, and that is why. Because it needs to be one or the other, but we don't need all the roads in the entire neighborhood getting torn up.
So, Madam Mayor, as I understand it, the only issue that you're looking for some clarification or to revisit is Laura Lane versus Andrea.
Yes.
I'm clear on that, and I suspect George is as well, so, fine.
And you tell me what I can do to help out, through Mr. Gilder. Tell me what I can do to give you some level of comfort on that.
I'll talk to you about that.
I believe it's in the PUD agreement, the draft that I sent in March. No more questions?
No more questions.
Thank you.
Do I need to call him? All right, so I'm gonna call up, because I had saved this, the Forest Ridge, Glens. Now, with it being postponed, I don't know if you still wanna speak, but I had saved this for whoever it was. If you want to, or you can wait till next meeting, that's up to you. It just says Forest Ridge Glens. Yes, yes.
He's our association president.
My name is John Hill.
Excuse me, excuse me, I just want to get clarification on the amount of time. So he's put on here 10 minutes. By your rules, if someone comes as a representative, they can be given 10 minutes, right?
Correct.
The question is he a representative? And if he is, then no one else from that development, they would all agree that they will not speak and it will be only him. Last time, he spoke as a representative and we had 3 or 4 other people stand up and give a comment. So, nothing against him, but we just want to be clear, he's the sole speaker on this topic.
My name is John Hill, and I live at 292 Laurel Lane, and I'm one of the board of directors for Forest Ridge Glens HOA. And I was speaking on Monday, the 14th, at the city council meeting, and I didn't get through my whole presentation, so I want to recap what we started talking about in 2014. And one of them is the flooding in the 3 main areas from Ralston's Road to 24-inch culvert. The flooding on Nicole Lane, remember there is no wetlands, was marked on the erosion plans and sedimentation plans that were revised in July 23rd, 2002 for lots 23 through 78 and the 5 additional lots on Pauline Path. And Kirsten, could you bring up in your packet there, you have a map of all the wetlands there. First, on the issue of the building permit. Note, you have to know how and what you are improving before you can make putting together and making a cost estimate. I want to read the ordinance that you guys are given the information from, and this is the ordinance that I gave you copies of 2 weeks ago. And in here it says, prior to approval of a final plan, the city council shall require all standards and conditions of approval to be incorporated in the development agreement. This agreement shall be prepared by the city attorney, and that's beforehand, and reviewed by the city planner, and then approved by the city council. My next item would be on there's a paragraph 9 on here that says the city council, upon recommendation of the planning commission, shall resolve all ambiguities as is applicable. Another one says, ensure the compatibility of adjacent uses of land and promoting of the use of land in a socially, economically desirable manner, and protect the public health and safety and welfare. So So in closing, the city council
Your time
is not a
up.
rubber stamp, what's that?
Your time is up, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, motion to award 2024-2025 catch basin cleaning and inspection program contract.
Go ahead, Don.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. You have before you tonight the motion to award that program. As previously mentioned, the Department of Public Works initiated a stormwater catch basin cleaning program and inspection back in 2023. The goal of the program is to clean and inspect a portion of our stormwater system each year to ensure that we have a clean and properly functioning system. In addition to cleaning, staff will be working with the contractor to inspect catch basins and associated infrastructure. The inspection results are then used to create a maintenance program so we can do capital improvement programs and further maintenance as we move forward. At the April 4th, 2025 bid opening, staff received 6 bids for the project, and based on the opening at the time, Waldorf and Sons Incorporated was the low bidder. So what we're asking for tonight is approval to award the contract to Waldorf and Sons Incorporated in the amount of $30,000.
Questions? Denise?
No questions.
Tom?
No questions.
Jerry? Pam?
Just one. And so all this is definitely absolutely necessary too, so you don't get in default of the state permit as well, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
MS4 permitting. Yep.
Is there any questions from residents? Seeing none?
I make a motion that we approve this contract.
Link,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Simons.
Yes.
Okay. The motion to award 2024-2025 sanitary sewer line cleaning and video inspection program contract.
Mayor, City Council, this is essentially a mirror image of what you just approved, except for this is on the sanitary sewer side of things. This is honestly long overdue. I had mentioned in some of our previous meetings that we do not have a baseline currently for our existing sanitary sewer system. So this will be the first year that we're starting this program. Again, just like the stormwater program, it's something that we would like to budget and fund each year so that we can take a look at the entire system. What this helps us do, again, is create a CIP program as we move forward. This one in particular, we're focusing on the line along Bridge Street before the proposed reconstruction of Bridge Street later this year. So we're doing this in an attempt to stay ahead in case there are any deficiencies in that system so that we could take the necessary steps to correct those if needed before the road project starts. So again, this was put out on the Mitten site to request bids. And on the April 4th bid opening, we had 4 bids for the project. And again, Waldorf and Sons Incorporated was the low bid at the amount of $54,000. So essentially, we are just asking to award this contract as well to Waldorf and Sons Incorporated and start this program out. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the residents? Seeing none? Jerry?
Oh.
Pam?
Nope.
Brad?
None.
Tom?
No.
No.
Okay.
I make the motion.
Support.
Miller,
Yes.
Simons,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Link,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes. Okay, Next item is motion to approve the purchase of an asphalt hot box reclaimer.
I think this is my last item tonight. Again, as is mentioned in here, the city council is aware that asphalt hot box is an essential part of municipal asphalt repairs. The hot box is used year-round for making asphalt repairs on roads, parking lots, and other hard surfaces. So I included some photos in the packet. Our current hot box is over 25 years old and has become burdensome on day-to-day operations. I had staff go through and compile just a short list of some of the more significant issues that's listed in the memo here. One of the largest being the patcher top. Since the time I started here has been missing and has been replaced with a tarp in an attempt to keep heat in while we are trying to keep asphalt at temperature. The hydraulic surge brake lines have rusted to a point where they're no longer in use. The lower section of the hopper compartment where the burner is sandwiched between plates has rusted through to a point where as they drive down the road, quite often the flame blows out. So, you know, they'll get to a location and notice that the patch is starting to get hard again. So it's just things like that that had us investigate and do some demos on new units. This is something that was budgeted in the 24-25 budget. We sort of anticipated that this was going to be coming. We had sort of a unique opportunity here. These are all part of the My Deal bidding process, and what the My Deal process allows is for counties and local municipalities to piggyback onto state contracts to save money and the unnecessary need to write individual specs each time. So generally speaking, I think you'll notice in some of the documents that are here, it generally saves somewhere in the area of about 17% off the typical cost. The unique situation we came across is we had KM International bring out what they refer to as a R&D unit for us to evaluate. They allowed staff to take and demo it, and I also have included some photos in there for your review. What they've done on this particular unit is it's multiple walls that keeps the hot mix insulated. So when the burner's operating, it's almost, think of it like a cooler. It has double wall sections that with insulation in between that helps preserve the temperature. What they did on the exterior of this unit is, rather than what's called a continuous weld seam, they are utilizing riveting for this. And so that's why they're referring to it as an R&D option. Because they want us to work with them on how the unit performs and how it holds up, they've agreed to, I think it's a 25% reduction in cost, which actually brings this unit down to the lowest bid of the three that we demoed. So essentially we're asking tonight for approval to purchase that KM International unit. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any residents have any questions?
Are you gonna salvage the other stuff?
She needs to go to the.
What about the comment?
Sorry.
We need a comment.
Oh, and when you're done, Jude.
Okay, I have a question for you too, please. If I'm looking at the model number correctly, this is a diesel fuel system?
That's correct.
The maintenance schedules on the diesel compared to the propane.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done a cost efficiency of how often that diesel unit has to be cleaned and maintained compared to the propane?
Yes, so one of the things, there's an eye that they call it that you have to keep clear and clean, and it does require a little more maintenance than the propane unit, but in the long run, it's cheaper to run, and the propane units themselves, you have to take it out, take the units off, take them down, get them filled, and the diesel just lasts a lot longer as far as longevity. So we get a full day of training on these units, and those what they consider maintenance issues are one of the things that they train everybody on.
And then my next question is on the exterior surface. Is that a paint, is that a powder coat, or is it a tough coat?
Yeah, I believe it's a powder coat. I'd have to
It's
confirm that.
powder coat?
I believe so. I'd need to confirm that though.
Because I'm just looking at longevity, steel rust.
Sure.
And this is an 8-inch square tube, which gets moisture and it'll rust from the inside out.
Right.
So I was wondering if they were coated inside, powder coated inside, or tough coated.
Yeah. I would have to check. I'm not sure on
Okay,
that.
that's just a question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Brad?
No question.
Sam?
No questions.
Jerry?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of this hot coat asphalt hot box.
I'll second.
Simons?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Link?
Yes.
Armstrong?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Hicks?
Yes.
Next up is Genesee County CCIF agreement.
Madam Mayor and Council, tonight you guys have in front of you an agreement. As part of the City of Linden's long-term investment into the water system, the city entered into an agreement with Genesee County to connect to the water supply system, Southern Loop section. That transition, as you all know, replaces our groundwater system with Lake Huron source supply. And tonight in front of you is a county capital improvement fee agreement. As you all know, we are charged based on the number of meters that we have in the system to connect to the system. That has been a factor that's been involved in all of the financial analysis and things like that. And all of our previous agreements outlined the county's responsibilities for constructing and financing the necessary improvements. The city is responsible for its proportion of those construction costs. Included in the packet is also, and Kristen passed this out, we updated the packet, Exhibit A. It shows the finance portion of Phase 2 and Phase 3, but it shows just the city's responsibility to those payments. And the one thing that is not involved in that is the county connection fee. And again, like I explained, we pay $1,000 per meter to connect to the county. What they're offering is for us to pay that over a 20-year period instead of being billed at once, which again is something that we've anticipated. We knew was coming, and if you can see in attachment B, it outlines how many of those meter equivalents, the cost overall, and then it shows, also recognizes them taking off the $596,000 for the transfer of the Linden water treatment plant. So tonight we're asking council for approval of that agreement, as well as authorizing the city manager and staff to finalize the transfer of ownership of the plant and adjacent wells to Genesee Drain. If this was not approved, then what would happen is they would take and bill us upfront for 100% of those costs. And so, just that one.
Thank you.
Any resident questions on this item? Seeing none? Tom, I'm gonna start with you. Do you have any questions?
Is it really, I mean, it seems pretty well straightforward.
No questions.
No questions. I think that, you know, we have to be proactive rather than have a big bill come to us, so, so I guess that would be it.
No questions? I'm good. Okay. Jerry?
I'm good.
Just to comment that I think it's a much better deal for us to be able to make equal payments over a 20-year period than they have to work it all over all at once.
Madam Mayor, I think Judy, did you put your hand up?
Yeah.
I think, did you ask for residence?
I had, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't see her, I'm sorry. No.
I'd like to can the residents have all this detailed before you vote? There is so much that they want to see. We have to see it literally, not hear it. You're talking a lot of money. I understand the numbers. I agree with the guy that's here. I agree with the second thing with the fix part. I don't have a problem with all that. But I wanna lay out this thing, I believe it's, that you just showed, every detail of where you spend money, what grants are covered, what you're selling, what's going towards the budget, the whole caboodle. Because you're crossing, how can I say it?
It depends on the two separate entities or two different divisions. You got a guy who sits on both boards, so money's being transferred from company to company.
That's our question.
I think Tara Phillips.
So if you go to that last screen, and again, you might need to fact check me, but I think, I'm sorry.
Right, no, that one right there.
I think that's the second entity that I'm talking about. The websites are a little different, and I could be wrong. Again, we got Jeff Wright sitting on one board, we got him sitting on another board, okay? Again, our funded $29 million went to this one company. He's our elected Drain County Commissioner, and he runs these companies that he sits on the board to. Are you guys following me here? We need this money audited and tracked before these votes are made. Again, the guy made a great presentation. I'm not saying, like, maybe everything's right, okay? Maybe there is. I don't sit and read all the stuff that you guys do, but I do educate myself on the back end, okay? I just think if one person is involved, now two separate entities, two different divisions here. And like I said, that other water company, if they're also involved here, anyone following the $29 million, the money from one company? I mean, potentially, I'm not saying it's happening, but what I'm saying is, before these decisions are made, I just think it's really important we get that audit. I think our city needs to ask for an audit of those ARPA funds. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Those are our taxpayer dollars here. So again, if you could check, that's why I asked the question. Is this a different entity up here? Maybe I'm wrong. Please prove me wrong. I want to know. I'm trying to educate myself.
So the agreement that's in front of the council to vote on tonight has nothing to do with ARPA funds. It has everything to do with just the county connection.
Right.
And recognizing the revenue that they would be paying us for taking ownership of our treatment plant. And this is with the Genesee County Drain Commission water and waste.
Is it a second entity than the Drain Commissioner Company? Is it, or are they the same?
Madam Mayor, if I could. We heard about this at your work session a little bit. I'm not entirely sure what the audit is that is being requested. You, as the city, have already had an audit, right? The county and any of its subsidiaries would also have had an audit done. We cannot audit their books.
You need to ask for an audit.
Their audit, like ours, would be a matter of public record. Anybody can get that.
They audit, they said last week they audit themselves. There's a problem.
Excuse me, ma'am, I'm just trying to explain the process as I understand it. If you are talking about a forensic audit, something beyond the regular annual audit that every governmental body has to have, there are two things with that, three things with that. One, you have to have a particularized suspicion of wrongdoing in order to get anybody to do a forensic audit. You just can't say, we want a forensic audit. Two, on average, for a community like the city of Linden, I'm not talking about Genesee County, average price of a forensic audit is $50,000. If we're going to be asking for a forensic audit of two different governmental county bodies, you can imagine that's going to be pricey. 3, how do we spend our money? How do you justify spending our money to have an audit done of another municipal body's audit or their financial structure? To me, that's problematic. So I don't know what sort of audit can be done. You can ask for what has already been done, and the county will give it to you, and I suppose judge for yourself whatever it says.
In addition to that, Tara, you're referencing the county ARPA dollars, and any entity that received any of the ARPA funding is responsible for providing reporting on a quarterly basis. So those reports are also public record and would be found under the respective entity that requires those. We received $490,000 just alone directly from the government, and we still have to file reports associated with that. They were also, during our audit of that respective year, the ARPA funds were also audited along with the cities. So I would imagine that Plant Moran, who's done the county audits, have done similar, and the agencies that are responsible for those ARPA dollars have had to fill out those respective reports too. So other than that, I can't speak to that. What's in front of City Council is very different tonight, so I appreciate the comments.
I will definitely do more research and do more digging, and because I mean, again, I'm not accusing anybody. I'm questioning. I'm allowed to question because it's $9. So I just apologize, but I do, like I said, I'm trying to educate myself here, so I appreciate it. I will look into that. All right, thank you.
Yeah, we're just trying to look out for the taxpayers down there. That's the, we just want to make sure that we're actually getting our taxpayer dollars to help us.
I know Jerry has
Yeah, one thing, after he had made that statement that they audit themselves, he did clarify that, saying they have an independent company come in and audit, but they are not in control of the audit. They have somebody else outside come in and do the audit. So he said, I misspoke when I said we audit ourselves. We do not, but we do have audits on our system, so.
And that's what I heard as well.
Yes, I heard that also.
No, I heard that as well, but I mean, my tax guy works for me. I'll just say that. Like, you know what I mean? We all hire companies who help us work for us. So that's why that was my point. I did hear him too.
Okay.
I just think it's important that we get an outside entity, like just like that attorney, he represents the buyer, right? Don't you think somebody who does the audit is probably gonna, represent them? My 2 cents. As we can say
A governmental audit has to be filed with the state of Michigan, Department of Treasury, and it's reviewed independently by them. Just like, the city has its own audit, I don't think anyone on this dais, I've never heard anyone in the audience accuse the auditor of cooking the books because they work for the city. They have certain standards that they have to do their audit by. The same goes for every governmental body across the state.
Madam Mayor, we were just talking about, and Ellen, we're just talking about the $1,000 per resident, and that be nothing else with the water?
So, yeah, as explained in the memo and the attached agreement, as well as Exhibit A and Exhibit B, as well as recognizing the revenue that would be exchanged for the treatment plant.
So Madam Mayor, as that is just, all we're working and voting on this evening is just to make those payments over a 20-year period instead of giving a whole entire lump sum. And so as that is what we're supposed to be debating, I move that we approve the CCIF annual fund fees agreement between the City of Linden and Genesee County Drain Commissioner's Office as outlined, and furthermore authorize the city manager and staff to finalize the transfer of ownership of the water treatment plant and adjacent wells to the Genesee County Drain Commissioner's Office.
Yes, ma'am.
Brad hadn't had a turn yet.
Oh, jeez, Brad.
The number of meter, I'm assuming that's residential equivalent units, REUs?
Yes.
No,
Meter.
sorry.
Meter equivalent units?
It's meter counts in the city. They didn't go off of sewer.
Originally, originally, when they, factored it, they factored it off of our sewer REUs.
Correct. I believe it was in the 1700s originally, and we worked with the county on the correct numbers. They brought it down to 1594.
I'm just trying to figure out why the 1594 differs from the PFM of 1349.
They used MEUs in the PFN. So meter equivalents when they came to their numbers.
Actual meter equivalents in PFMs is 2405, the actual meter, so it's 1349. I believe. It's hard scrolling back through 300 pages.
Excuse me if I may.
Don, do you want to reference the conversation that you had with the county?
Well, originally, the county worked with us on the number of accounts that we had. And then they worked with Brooke to make that align with the number of REUs and the number of MEUs. And so the number you see before you tonight is what she worked out with their office as well.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at right there. So we came to my main concern was, I was trying to figure out if we were paying forward some meters or, like we've done in the past for, sewer units. By that number, we've got 1,300 or 1,349 in meters.
We can get clarification on PFM. We went back and forth with multiple times on the county MEU versus REU. Again, when this originally started, it was at 1,700 and.
Right.
Well, that was fine, that's my main concern, is I know at one point in life we had purchased more sewer units than we ever were gonna use, or we anticipation was about a discount. I just wasn't sure how this was working out, because the numbers weren't lining up.
Okay, and there's one bit more, and this will be the last resident on the subject tonight.
Oh, thank you. So I
Can
have
you-
a question on the exhibit B.
Can you come to so we can
Oh,
hear
yeah,
you?
it's a question. I asked the city, but I didn't know you guys were gonna vote on it right now, so that's why I'm kind of wondering. So, and also like hard. So just, I guess just sitting in here, I'm like, well, I didn't realize we were making this decision. So as far as exhibit B, the $1,000 is like basically kind of like a debt per home, right? Per meter. It's being kind of assessed, but not really assessed, kind of in your bulk purchase from this division,
It's
right?
it's a county capital improvement fee.
Okay.
So it isn't a debt per home. It's, each home or meter user, that they're paying in to connect to the county.
Right, right. So I have like a debt reduction question. So what if as residents, we opt to pay that in advance? Like pay that $1,000 in advance, and it doesn't go to a 20-year bulk amount of money that has to be paid back over 20 years. I want to pay the $1,000 for my meter.
So there's no interest on this, not on this that's being proposed.
Okay.
And if the question that you're asking, I'd have to follow up with you on if you wanted to pay off a lump sum on the debt charge, we'd have to follow up with you on that specifically. But this specific item that is on the agenda tonight is no interest.
Okay.
This is completely separate from the other finance portions of the project.
Okay, perfect, great. Just,
Nope.
I'm like, if I could reduce, debt for the whole 20 years. So, okay, thank you.
Was that the last one, or?
Yeah, that was the last one.
Ellen, is that the 1.5 I discussed with you?
Judy, I'm not sure, you discussed the last time we talked to you, you discussed the 1.5.
Each house for each year, 1.5 million.
Yes, that, if you look at it, it's 1,594 meters at $1,000 and it's.
I thought we were getting that reduced to 9 something.
Correct, if you look at, pull up Exhibit B, it's reduced to 998,000.
Madam Mayor, did we close?
Yes, we did.
We closed the.
Okay.
Is it okay to make a motion
You did, I
now?
thought.
You
Oh, I
did,
did,
think you
okay,
did.
sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Howard,
Yes.
Link,
Yes.
Simons,
Yes.
Armstrong,
No.
Hicks,
Yes.
Miller,
No.
Dick.
Yes.
Motion carries. 5-2.
Moving on to the fiscal year 2025-2026 draft budget for discussion only.
Yes, discussion only. I know it's been a long night, and I'm sorry. But I know that we also, the mayor and I discussed that if it's necessary, we can obviously schedule a special meeting to do that. But while I've asked my staff to be here and sit through the meeting, I do want to give them an opportunity to discuss the budget. The budget process is a very lengthy process for all of us that are involved in it. We start the process shortly after we adopt the budget, and it's a constant moving target, and like I said, a process that we have internally in going through each of the numbers. So what you see here tonight is just for discussion only, and what we're recommending, and some of the assumptions that were made. There's nothing, last year's budget looked very different. One of the things that I just want to, I guess, recognize, and we're gonna hit the highlights. We're not going line by line, just so I don't, because I know you guys are looking at it feeling a little bit overwhelmed.
Ellen, real quick.
Yes.
Can I use the restroom real quick?
Yeah.
I just don't want. Okay.
Okay. Yep, I'm sorry, I'm gonna stand because I've been sitting too long today, so, again, we're gonna go through, hit the highlights and tell you some of the assumptions that we made. Again, I know it's gonna take a minute for us to absorb and chew on some of the information. Please feel free to provide some feedback to us as staff, but I think it's important for staff to hear, get through their requests and things like that. So, Brooke, do you wanna just revenue really quick? I know Jerry had a question on the 5%.
Sure. Yep, so the revenue for the revenue for the property taxes, a 5% increase was used for that number. An exact number will come closer to us receiving the L4028 from equalization, where I can actually calculate the millage rate for this year. So that's based off of just a 5% increase. Mosquito control, again, 5%, because taxable values are expected to go up about 5% this year, based off our assessing. A lot of this is stuff that you see every year, pilot revenue, trailer park fees, interest and penalty, that's on your tax. State revenue sharing, that was a little tricky this year. It's kind of coming in a little bit lower, but not significantly.
And right now, we're just talking specifically general fund, okay?
Yes.
So this is just 101 general fund, so.
My question was, do we have a trailer park in Linden?
Shiawassee Shores.
Sorry.
If there's any questions on the revenues, I'm here for questions, but they're pretty conservative this year. We have no bond proceeds because there's no potential bonds to be taken up next year. But your revenues mostly come from your taxes.
And really quickly, just one of the things that, one of the biggest things that we have, obviously you guys know that we have a lot of outstanding projects, right? We have the mill, we have Lindenwood, we have Ralston, We have a lot of other projects, safe routes to school and things like that. So Brooke and I, along with a lot of discussion back and forth, we really felt that it was necessary to put some funds in capital outlay, and so that way, as we complete those projects this year, there is any excess can, for overages and things like that, can be addressed in the capital outlay. We also ran that by our auditors to see if that was a, common practice and things, and she said yes. She actually feels that that's probably the more responsible way, because again, we still have a lot of projects to complete within this budget year, so just wanted to recognize that. So as you move on to the next page, is where we start to get into the expenditures. One of the biggest things that we did here is training and then legal fees. In the past, historically, we've never had a line item for legal fees for council, but over the past year to 2 years, we've had the need for that. So you'll see that we've added a line item in there for legal fees. City managers, again, the assumptions and things like that, as I looked at the wages and stuff like that, over the past couple of years, we've done a lot of different industry adjustments for some of our positions within the city. And so we needed to bring those up more than what the cost of living increases would adjust for. But in this budget right now, it's a 3%, and then the police is all dictated by their collective bargaining agreement. But overall, it's 3% that's proposed for staff. And then the fire is also looking at doing something different for their paid on call. So, but we'll get there. So really nothing major different. In my budget, the biggest thing is moving out that community coordinator and human resources, which is Tessa's position. It's moving it out and putting it under the respective department. Last year, we weren't sure as we were taking on LOC. We just needed to have a placeholder to be able to accommodate for those expenses, but that would be moving out of the city managers and going into the respective departments. And then we'll move on to the city clerk, and I know, Kristen, you have a couple of items to just really kind of hit the highlights with.
Yes, so most of the clerk's department requests this year, pertains to necessary adjustments to meet ongoing operational needs and updated laws, technology enhancements, and additional costs pertaining to staffing, as well as professional development and training. So Ellen hit on the modest 3% increase for the cost of living. Also reflected in the clerk's department budget is our fringe benefits, and these are so the taxes and the expenses for retirement for myself and my deputy clerk, Nicole. Mileage, this is for utilization of our personal vehicles for travel reimbursement, trips, trainings, conferences, meetings, and events. For also election-related matters. We have memberships, which are very important to us because not only do they help us in our profession and networking, we also receive discounted rates for trainings and conferences. So we have memberships with the county association, our state, even the International Association of Municipal Clerks and Michigan Cemetery Association. And then the training line, obviously we're a newer clerk department. So Nicole and I are going through additional trainings. I'm going through continuing education and hope to have a second certification before this year's ends. And do you want me to hit on elections right now, or we'll come back? Okay. I'll be back.
So moving down from the clerk's budget, we have the community coordinator, human resources. This is where I said that it was moving out of the city managers and going under its own umbrella. The thing to remember with this position is this is a shared position. So this is the general funds portion of this department, which is Tessa, and she can speak to that specifically. And then this is a shared position with OC and with the DDA. So Tessa, do you have anything that you want to address in this one specifically? Okay. So keep moving. Obviously, we have board of review. They are paid when they meet.
We did add in the training line in the board of review due to having the newer members of board of review. So you'll see that 500 has not been historically budgeted, but it was due to just getting the training done.
Yeah. One of the other items that you'll notice is health insurance, right? Health insurance costs are something that we look at annually. We sit down with our health insurance provider and plan facilitator, and we look at that, and if there's any adjustments that we can do, then we do that, but it does go up. I think last year it was to the tune of 13% potentially, and this year we're planning between an 8 and a 13% increase as well, so that's something to just keep in mind. And then, so moving on to the treasurer, Brooke, is there anything you want to highlight there?
It kind of reiterates with Kristen as well. Our fringe benefits are wages and salaries for myself and my deputy. Professional development, memberships for MMTA, MGFOA, MANC. I'm continuing on with my accreditation for my MICPT. So I'm just doing continuing professional education yearly, and my deputy has started her first year with the MMTA Basic Institute, and she will be on her second year next budget. So pretty easy and simple. Mileage is for the use of our personal cars, for traveling to the county for meetings, as well as traveling to trainings. And that's based off of the IRS's recommendation.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question at the end?
No, what do you
Okay. I'm looking at the treasurer. I love the treasurer. So I'm just saying, my question is 2025, so it's making 55,000. The next, then it went to 65,000, and then it's going up to 66. Where's the $10,000?
Well, you gotta look at, you're looking at, the first column is 2024, 2025 activity. We still have a couple of months left to go. So
Okay.
that's the actual activity, and then the next column is actually what's budgeted, which is 65,000. So the first column is what's been spent to date,
Okay.
okay?
We
The
still
next
have
column,
technically May and June to go.
right. So the next two columns
So
are,
you make $65,000.
Correct.
Okay.
But to date, fiscal year of July 1, I've only made 55.
Okay, yeah, when I seen this 55 to 65. Okay, thank you.
So assessing, we contract obviously with the city of Fenton. As you guys seen, we just renewed that this past year. We do have professional services that we added in there, different from previous years, because in our general government line item for legal and professional services, we were paying for a lot of things that were associated with assessing, so like tax tribunal, if we had to do any appraisals, for instance, or if there was any legal fees associated with it. So we added that line item to accommodate for those services that are necessary. Moving down to elections, Kristen?
And a bet.
So election to wages, that encompasses my, our part-time election specialist who helps out during election time only. Our election workers for the 90s of early voting for each election, as well as for election day. And this also encompasses support from staff at City Hall for our election day hour requirements to make sure that we have proper coverage and that we're open when we're supposed to be, which we are. For the election expenses line, we are anticipating needing some updated equipment to meet state standards and software requirements, and county programming fees, supplies, envelopes. Postage is higher. We have some requirements from the state that we're needing to mail out to each and every voter, so that'll be coming later. Really, that's.
9 days to lose voting. We didn't spend 10,000.
Any questions, feel free.
Moving on to buildings and grounds. Don, do you want to highlight anything here? Obviously you can see this is where the community center, the mill building expense, and the mill building expense is for more of the day-to-day operational. Obviously this year, we're not sure what that's gonna look like necessarily because it's gonna be under construction. Obviously the tenants are out of there, so it will look a little different. This is the line, or this is the budget that is the telephone, the internet service, electricity and heat, our water and sewer. And then in your repairs and maintenance, and Don, correct me if I'm wrong, this is where we've included some necessary repairs because of structural at City Hall?
Correct.
Okay.
As some of you know, there's been some structural issues at City Hall, particularly in the basement. We had an engineer come in and review and study that and make some recommendations. So we will be moving forward to receive quotes on getting that corrected. There's some additional things on the exterior of the building that looks as though it's just gonna require some tuck pointing and that sort of thing. So it shouldn't be too awfully expensive, but those are things that obviously, depending on how expensive they are, we would end up coming back to council for approval if it rises to that level, so.
Thank you. And moving on to general
I have a
government.
question,
Oh,
please. Do we know what our projected, cost is for ongoing maintenance of that mill building going forward? Like,
We do not at this point. No, it's gonna depend on where the use of that building lands. What I think we can expect is that there's probably gonna be some savings associated with heating, but there's gonna be more expense associated with multiple levels of bathrooms and I'm assuming public use bathrooms.
So we'll know more.
Yes,
So-
we'll know more as we decide the use.
okay, thank you.
Under general government, this is just, as you can see here, this is office supplies, postage, insurances, memberships, auditing fees, consultant fees, legal fees, and things of that nature. Community promotions. Community promotions would be, for instance, we're planning the upcoming Memorial Day parade and festivities and things like that. So any cost associated with that would come out of that line item. Our beautification line item, appreciate those volunteers that do that, and, yep, sorry.
I just wanted to throw in, if I can, I had heard last year that, maybe possibly with beautification, having someone specifically hiring someone extra just for the summer, or even as a volunteer that was willing to do it, to water the plants and making sure that they had some way to cart the water around the community. That was brought up to me multiple
Sure.
times. by
We actually had a meeting with the beautification committee, Don and I, not long ago, and we talked about their needs and how to address those, and specifically a watering system or cart or some type was discussed, and potential access to other hydrants and things like that. So we have been in talks with them, we have talked about that, and as you guys all know, Don does try to hire seasonal help to address any of those things that fall through the cracks and stuff. That would be, yep. The only thing I guess here, it really is under office equipment and maintenance support. One of the things I want to draw attention to, we are anticipating that we're going to need to move to the cloud. And after discussions, we might need to move to the cloud. I'm sorry, let me back up. BS&A is our financial management system that houses it's our financial software for all things. It's for tax, assessing, general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, all the things, right? They moved away from the physical software.net programs and they're moving to the cloud. And so we have been in conversations with them and what that would look like for the city of Linden. We also are in a position where we need to replace our server as well. So stay tuned for more information on that, but that's why that line item looks so significantly different.
And I have one more question. So we go to the cable franchise fees, it was, what exactly is that?
Under PEG or?
It's under, current real estate property taxes?
Oh, are you back in the revenue?
Revenue.
So the cable franchise fees is under the revenue line item, is we get a portion of the cable, so like it's, I wanna say it's 5%.
And as people go away from cable charter, that number is gonna continually.
Yeah, so what you're seeing is a decline in those franchise fees and things because people are going to online streaming platforms. So cable and things like that are becoming less, so you'll see that decreasing. So moving on from general government to the building department, that covers anything related to our building official, Marty, and things, nothing major there out of that. And then next is 441, Department of Public Works. Trying to move through this as quick as I can, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Do you have any questions?
I know, right? I don't know if there's really, I know. There's not
Nothing specific, yeah.
significant changes there, so.
I think that the DPW budget overall in all of our categories, you'll see we're sort of shifting into prevention and maintenance mode. There's not a lot of significant investment in equipment at this point. It's just capital improvement programs for the most part that are moving us forward.
Which is something we've been trying to do forever. Thank you.
We're finally getting there.
That's significant.
Yeah, thank you, Don. Under engineering fees, this is just a placeholder. This is for $2,000. Obviously, you all know that as we have projects that come up, those projects, those engineering fees would be associated with those specific projects. This is just something for general things that might come up throughout the year for the general fund, so.
Just real quick on the general, on the
Yeah.
wages. We went from 52 to 63, 20%. This is on the 441. Did we,
Oh, okay. Under general wages, we still are only proposing a 3% wage increase for all staff associated with Department of Public Works, but the thing you have to keep in mind is we have to also accommodate for overtime and stuff in that number. And so we're taking an estimate at what that would. The other thing to keep in mind is DPW's wages are split over multiple funds. So this is just a portion of their funds that are housed within general fund. There's, they build major, local, sewer, and water. So, I can follow up, Jerry, if that didn't clarify, so. Street lighting, moving on from Department of Public Works, Engineering already addressed. Street lighting, that's our cost associated with the street lights throughout the city. The solid waste, as you guys all know, we just did RFPs for that proposal, so Brooke adjusted that number according to the contract. So that's our expense for the annual. Cemetery, you'll see that we have included, let's see, our grave openings, foundations, repairs and maintenance, and general expenses. And we have adjusted those based on the cost increases from, what's the company? Genesee Valley Bolt.
Also, I just want to say, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
Everything used to just go into general expenses, and I just wanted it to be a little bit more transparent as to like what the general expenses were. So we added that line so that we can see the grave openings, so we can see how much is going to foundations, repairs and maintenance. So that's why you see the grave openings has never been historically budgeted for, but that's just removing that 20,000 from the general expenses and giving it its own line.
Yeah. Planning and zoning fees, we contract with Wade Trim, that would be for Adam's fees associated for his department. Moving on to CDBG, we did not budget in any CDBG revenue or expense. We are approved and we are anticipating getting those. Brooke and I would prefer to handle that as a budget amendment throughout the year, once we know exactly how much we're going to get, because it does sound like we are going to be getting some CDBG funding from Fenton Township as well. So again, you'll see that come back through as a budget amendment later on. So the parks, pretty straightforward. Anything to do with our parks department, any maintenance and things like that need to happen. The capital outlay, if you look at the next page after parks, this is where you're gonna see the $477,000. This is where we had a lot of conversations because of the projects that we still have outstanding and where those will land and when they come in and spanning over multiple budget years. We need to be able to make sure that we have enough funds to address any overages if that's the case. So that's what that line item is for. Under debt service payments, Brooke, yep.
The Leggy loan and then the 39 general obligation loan that we just took out, that's the portion of the parking lot that the city took out.
Okay, so a portion of the city parking lot that is being paved as we speak, or it's actually done, I think, today. It just needs striping and all of that kind of stuff. And then the lighting loan, several years ago, I think 2015 or 2017, the city financed downtown street lighting. So Moving on to operating transfers, as you guys know, over the past couple of years, general fund has helped to supplement a lot of different projects within the other funds. So we have a contribution to major and local streets proposed of $100,000. And as you guys know, we make a contribution to make the public safety fund whole as well. Moving on to 202, major street funds. Major street funds, our revenue sources there are Act 51 funds, and that is through gas tax, and it's a calculation that we get based on our population from the state of Michigan. We're not anticipating a huge increase in the revenue for that, but that is what we get for gas tax from the state of Michigan, Act 51 funds, to take care of our major streets. Major streets would be Ridge, Broad, Ralston, Hickory. I think that's it, right? So only those expenses for those roads can be billed out of this department. Now, major street funds can share funding with local streets because every other road that is not in those that I just named falls under local streets. And is there anything here that you guys might have questions on, or Don, that you want to clarify anything? Or?
You'll start seeing this year's engineering fees coming on for bridge work that's going to occur on North Bridge next year. So.
Moving down to local streets. As I said, this takes care of, you can see that we have $154,000 of Act 51 funding anticipated. That's not a lot of funds to take care of all of those local streets. So every other road that I didn't mention within those, Bridge, Broad, Hickory, Ralston, falls under our local streets. So anytime that you see the patcher or Don and his department out working on Main Street or Tickner, it's being billed under local streets. So that's where that's all being billed, and that's the equipment as far as like if it's hot patching or crack sealing, it's all being billed out of those respective departments. Engineering fees would cover safe routes. Is this for the safe routes?
There's multiple ones.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Safe routes, bridge, again, bridge for over Ripley Road, or on Ripley Road, I should say, over the river. That falls under local road, and I think that's it for next year.
I think so. Things are starting to level off with some of the projects and stuff, and yeah.
Then there's just other maintenance, crack filling that you guys have already approved, and that will occur both this year and next year. So. And then we're attempting, we have some money in there to do small patchwork as well.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public safety. This is where a couple of years ago the public safety millage was approved, and you see the expenses for police and fire move out of general fund and now are housed under this public safety fund. This year they're anticipating collecting $759,000 in property tax collection, and we do get reimbursement from Linden Community Schools for a portion of our school resource officer as well. And then this also has, you can see here, the contribution coming in from general fund to make those funds whole to cover police and fire and those things. So this is the revenue side of the public safety. Moving on to the next page of 301, I can let Chief, if you'd like. Do you wanna take care of any highlights or anything like that? If you guys have any questions or
just some highlights. You mentioned it, the collective bargaining agreement, and that runs through the end of June of 2028. As well as you mentioned the SRO, the reimbursement for that. We worked with the schools to mirror that our collective bargaining agreement with their patrol officers and our union. So that would run out at the end of June of 2028 as well. So additionally, some on the revenue side, 54300, we are mandated by the state of Michigan now to do continuing professional education beyond our firearms training, and they're giving $1,000 per FTE. The state wanted to dictate how we train, but MCOs and us chiefs stepped in and were able to convince them that, let MCOs, the actual experts, dictate what we're doing. So we appreciate that. Also, under equipment, on the expenditure side, we're looking at purchasing rifles. Our rifles are completely shot. They're hand-me-downs from, I don't know, maybe World War II. And they don't have optics, and so, we'd like to purchase, new rifles with optics so that we can protect and serve our community. Some other things have asked. The other thing is, like to purchase equipment for an interview room, and find a spot for that eventually, because we need to. And then also under the revenue side, the 302 funding, that's additional training outside of CPEs, continuing professional education. They have upped that to some degree, so got a little more money to train. That's it.
Thank you. Moving on to fire, Brian, is there anything that you'd like to highlight there specifically?
A few requests for salaries and wages. I'd like to increase my assistant chief's position from $2,500 a year to $3,000. This position is similar to my responsibilities in my absence. He has responsibilities for directing manpower and operational tasks needed on a scene and for their safety as well. In a recent countywide study, the range for this position that was provided to us last month ranges from $2,500 to $14,000 for other assistant chiefs in the county. And an increase in our firefighters per hourly rate from $18.50 an hour to $19 an hour. That range for the county survey was $15.41 to $25 per hour. In our clerical position, this position is responsible for inputting 30 to 45 calls a month into the state and national fire reporting systems. It takes approximately 15 to 20 minutes for every call, and we average over 300 calls. Any questions on any of the other line items?
Thank you, Brian. Moving on to 211, you'll see that this is a brand new department, and this is for senior citizens. And this is everything LoSI. And this budget is what was actually already approved by City Council, right, Brooke? We just plugged in the numbers.
Yes, Tessa did make a couple changes, so I don't know if she wants to speak on those, or she put in some notes for.
The only changes that were made was for the addition of the MML, insurance, because we didn't have that. We also did the building grounds and technology improvements, and then possibly the crack ceiling that we need for the parking lot. That's all we did.
We're learning with this too, and we work really closely with the county to make sure that we're hitting all the necessary benchmarks and stuff like that. But the county operates, so on October,
yes.
County's October, but yet we have to have, LoSI has currently operated on a traditional calendar year, and then the city operates on a June or July 1 fiscal year. So we're trying to make, this will work out hopefully within this next budget year, we'll all be kosher. So that really houses all of LoSI's necessary expenditures. Moving on to the DDA, our DDA actually reviewed this at the last meeting last week and did make a recommendation to approve and recommend to council for approval. You can see the anticipated revenue as well as the necessary expenditures. You'll also see the wages for Tessa's portion for DDA. Also the events that they're going to be covering, and then the capital projects, which is for the improvements to the mill pond path across the dam. Sorry. Moving on to 248. Okay, sorry. Police Equipment Fund. This you can see if you go back to Chief Sutter's expense line items, you'll see an expense for $15,000, and this is the revenue where that money would be transferred to start building up equipment fund to take care of any obviously equipment purchases, but more so vehicles, things of that nature. So. Same thing with the fire as well. You'll see that line item, and there'll be an expense line item out of Chief Will's expenses for that, and you'll see this coming into this budget as revenue. Moving on to the sewer fund, anything really there, Brooke? They're not anticipating rate increases this upcoming year. I know this addresses some of the stuff that, Don, you have projects for, as well.
The one thing I would just say stay tuned on is, as I mentioned earlier, as we start this cleaning and televising program, there's a good chance we may start finding those deficiencies out there that we're unaware of. So if those kinds of things occur, we'll have to come back to you for an amendment, and then we'll take all the necessary steps to make those corrections.
You'll also see hopefully, the generators, right? That's, we've accommodated for the generators, for the sewer lift stations in this upcoming, right? And the recommended, I think it's 205,000. Is that right?
That's correct. This has been a long, ongoing
Yes.
project. The work has actually started, and the pads are in place, and they're making arrangements to work with us on doing the tie-ins for those. So we will have those at the first two stations, and then we'll move forward on getting them installed at the second station.
And then moving on to water. Again, a lot of moving parts to this, and as Brody mentioned, I think just very briefly in his presentation, like, you know, we're gonna closely monitor as we move into this transition with the county water connection and things like that. You know, and if there's adjustments that need to be made throughout the year, we'll do that. Traditionally, before we move to the incremental rate increases, the council reviewed those rates on a yearly basis. Obviously, as you've heard in the past, those rates were froze for many years. They started to doing incremental increases to take care of things that had come up. Everything that we've discussed as far as, you know, we're not sure where we're gonna land once we start connecting, or once we connect with the pressures, right? So we wanna make sure that we, if we do have that, we have that accounted for in the budget. You'll see anything here that we wanna talk about specific to capital improvements or anything like that, Don?
Not particularly. Some of the items that you'll see as we move forward is we are taking this process slow, again, not knowing exactly how things are gonna react to the new pressures. So you'll see an increase in some main break repairs. And again, the potential, if it doesn't happen, obviously we won't utilize the money. But we're also gonna be, council will be considering in the future what to do with the water towers, as the water towers should no longer be necessary part of the system here in Linden. So we'll be probably a workshop item, matter of fact, to have a conversation about what to do with those and the wells wells 1 and 4 that will remain property of the city. So lots of conversation to come on that.
One of the things that we will have to address in this that I noticed that we didn't have is so our administrative staff does not bill hours to water. So the water department makes a transfer to general fund to cover treasurer's department, billing, all of those things, and so we'll have to make an adjustment to accommodate for those wages. So, any questions so far? I know you guys are ready to get out of here. Moving on to these next ones that you're gonna see are all associated with debt and projects associated with either the special assessments or those specific projects. It's pretty straightforward. I don't have to get into too much detail necessarily. So if you have, again, I know it's a lot to digest, as you guys look at it, observe it, please shoot me any questions, comments. If you want to come in, sit, chat, I'm happy to do that, and we can address. So, sorry, trying to move along as quick as possible, guys. So, thank you for being patient.
Thank you, all of you that put in work on this budget. Thank you very much. Next is the city manager's update.
Quick as well, as you guys all know, Linden Wood project is well underway for the spring. They were even paving Main Street today. City parking lot, as I already mentioned, is done. And really quickly, we don't dictate the schedule from the contractor as to what is, as far as the paving goes, like what street happens first and what, you know, so the contractor is the one that provides that to us, and they're the ones that dictate that schedule. Over the past couple of weeks, we have applied for additional appropriation fundings with Rivette's, Congresswoman McDonald Rivette's office, as well as Mike Mueller's office. Denise and Madam Mayor had been in contact with Mueller's office, and so together we worked on getting a submission to them. Again, we're hopeful, we'll keep our fingers crossed that we have some additional funding that comes our way to handle any of these capital projects associated with water. Just wanted to give you guys an update on that. We're in full swing of planning Memorial Day event, and we will need volunteers for that day, for cooking hot dogs, serving hot dogs, all of that stuff. And as you guys all know, we did advertise the mill for potential interest, and so we did receive 2 proposals. At this point, I think it would be helpful for us to address with a committee, understanding that any decision still has to be a decision of council of the whole. So more to come on that. And so that's really all I have for the city manager's update.
Thank you. City attorney.
Very briefly, since I won't be here at your meeting next month, I wanted to just elaborate more on the audit of the county by asking our treasurer some questions about our audit, very quickly. But when they come yearly, they are here for a number of days, aren't they?
Correct. Our auditor spends no less than a week straight testing our accounts payable, testing our payroll, sometimes longer than that, depending.
And in preparation for that, you have to make available and prepare all of the records for them to review.
Yes.
True? And is it also true that sometimes there will be multiple members of the audit team present?
Correct.
And once they then complete their work, they do the report, which is presented to council.
Yes.
And then that report then gets sent to the state.
Correct.
And is reviewed there by the state.
Yes, as well as a second set of eyes within the auditing firm to look over the initial auditors.
So I just wanted to elicit that, because the idea that you need to audit the county, the only way that you can replicate that is to have people go into the county, have those records available, have people spend time there reviewing it to come up with it. That's the only way to replicate it. So even if council said, we want that done as to the county, you can understand the county would say, well, wait a minute, we're not gonna make our records and our people available for that. So again, since I won't be here, I wanted that to be understood.
So what you're suggesting is that it has to be handled on that level. It can't be handled here, it has to be handled on a county level because it's the county's process.
Well, right, but it has already been done.
No, I mean, if someone were upset about it,
Right.
as we've heard today, if people are questioning it, it has to be questioned on that level.
Right.
We're not responsible for what they're.
Well, in terms of trying to double check, what they have done, what I'm saying is that requires an awful lot of work.
Yes.
And you are essentially co-opting county employees as part of that process. And that's where the county, I'm sure, would say, we've done that. We're not going to do it again. And if it takes upwards of a week to do the city, I can only imagine what the county entails.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and I've received all the department reports. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to add to those? No. Thank you very much. Okay.
Oh, I had something, I saw something really great the other day. I was coming up Broad Street, and people were moving too fast in front of me. They were probably doing about 40. And one of the officers just turned his lights on, and everybody went, whoa. So they slowed down, but it was a courtesy, and it was very, very nice to see that. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, we're gonna do council comments, so we'll start with you, Brenda.
Okay, so, a couple things I heard tonight, were a little bit disturbing to me. I think it might be that just, our processes aren't fully understood. So, the one comment that was made was about, the city manager over talking the mayor. The relationship between the city manager and the mayor is reciprocal. They work on things together. But I think the one thing that is fair to note here is that Linden is a city manager-led city. So that means it's a form of local government where a city council hires a professional, non-elected city manager to oversee the daily operations of the city. The city manager is essentially the city's CEO, responsible for implementing policies, managing departments, managing the city's finances. The city council, on the other hand, is responsible for making policy decisions, setting the budget, and overseeing the city manager's performance. Now, the mayor and the council members are the city council. City manager is Ellen, and her job is to be the CEO, to take care of everything during the day, day-to-day work. We don't have to be in there taking care of it because we've hired someone to do that. So I just kind of want to make that clear. I don't think everybody knows it, don't think it's widely known, so it could be misinterpreted. Okay, and the second thing that I wanted to address too is devices. The one thing people might not know is that when you become a city councilor, mayor, city manager, you're given a stipend to buy a device. You can get a computer, a tablet, you can get a phone, you can get whatever you want. But those are the devices that we use here on city council. And we're expected to use those. So when you see me on my phone, I'm looking at an agenda. Today, I was looking at my agenda, looking through the packet. My computer bugged out on me, couldn't use my computer. Her phone bugged out on her too. Sometimes that requires us to ask a few questions of our partners. You might have seen Denise, this leads to the other thing about chatting, which we do not do. We keep it to a minimum. If we say something to each other, it's because we're saying, that's on page 10, or it's this paragraph. Or Denise leaned over and looked at Tom's computer when they were talking about the asphalt.
Looking as a team.
Madam Mayor leaned over to Brad and asked a quick question as well. So when we do that, we're trying to work together to get the best information that we can to make the decisions we need to make. So just to, clear that up, clarify, and let you know that we're not up here having chats about anything other than what's in front of us. Okay? So that's my second comment. Oh, and on top of that, with the phones, some of us have ill people in our family and have to be notified of that too. So sometimes that does happen. There was a comment made about motions, how motions are being handled. They're being handled correctly. The city manager isn't making motions. So I kind of heard that said. She never makes a motion. We call for them, the mayor calls for the motions, but the manager doesn't make them. I hope that these things will be discussed with a few of the people that have said this along the way, and maybe, I don't know, someone said something about teaching 101. Sometimes we need to do that. So some of our residents might not know. We might be able to need to school them on those types of things so they don't misunderstand what's happening here. This dynamic is good, this dynamic is positive, and we're doing our job. So, and I don't want that to be overlooked. That's it.
Thank you. Denise. Well, there's not very many people here, so hopefully you can hear my voice. First, I'd like to thank everyone that saved that man's life.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone. I mean, I know that man. I didn't know that happened to him. And I'm so proud of each and every one of you that we have that guy alive and doing all the good things he needs to do. Ramona and her singing group was at the soup event and was wonderful. And I actually sang with Roby. It was good. Yes, I did.
That's cool.
And then this device. This device, I have a husband that is a veteran. My husband is not well. If I see my husband come on this, I will leave and I will answer it because it could be life or death. So if someone has an issue with the phone, I'm sorry, but this is very important for each and every one of us to have this. I am so proud of all of us here. Hopefully we continue to do good work. We're here for you guys. Thank you.
I don't have much to say tonight. I'm been on the road all day. I came back from Kentucky just to make it back to the meeting. And I do appreciate everybody coming in. We covered a lot of information tonight. Hands off to the police department. While I was gone, I asked them to keep an eye on my house. They actually stopped a couple times and walked around the house.
He's got a good refrigerator.
Well stocked.
There was some bourbon missing.
Must be in the market, Scott.
But thank you for holding in there with us tonight. It's been a long night, and I think we got a lot done.
Jared?
I'm good, thank you. I'm ready to go home.
You're ready to go home? I just have a few comments, that, I don't know, just think, is it okay if I just talk? I'm sorry, but I'm pushing the button, it's not working. So I just wanted to mention too, that sometimes when people have questions on financials, like for instance, Ellen had a reimbursement for road work or she drives a lot. She's going to have a bigger bill for her on the road expenses, and the same occurs, you know, because you have your training, Kristen, and you have your training, and so everybody is going to have different rates. So no one's going to ever be the same. But other than that, I just thank all of you for staying so long, and it just shows your spirit, your citizenship. Thank you very, very much, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Fred?
It's 10 to 10, it's half my bedtime.
You need some beauty sleep? Oh, oops.
Yes, I do.
I'm not going to
All right, and I've got something super fast. So, last week, we were in contact with Representative Mueller's office, and Denise and I met with Ellen on Tuesday, and a package has been submitted to Rep. Mueller for the city. I want to thank you for your help, Denise, Ellen, and I want to thank Michael Moon and Representative Mueller. Now we have to wait until October, and we will know whether we were approved. Somewhere around October with the budget. So I just wanted to give a thanks to everyone that helped me out with that.
Awesome. Very nice.
All right, and do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn
Please.
now.
Second.
All right, meeting adjourned at 9:51 p.m.
Oh man, it's gonna take a while to edit all this.